Hi fans, set number 3 is about to go underway. We're at the halfway point of day number 3 of our SPL play-in tournament, and we're back on the winner's side of the bracket. If you were upset that you were losing a couple of friends watching in those last ones, they got to go home and you don't get to see them anymore, well, don't worry. Neither of these two teams in these next two sets are going to be going home just yet. Instead, they'll go down to the loser's bracket if they lose, but the winners get the most powerful point here is they're one set away after this from making it into the SPL. They just need to win this best of 3. Only got to win this best of 3.
Just this one.
And then they just got to win the next best of 5. And then they're in the SPL. It's J-Mac and Mifflin here as we get ready to go and dive into the Oni Homies versus the FUNHAVERS. The Oni Homies kind of by and far the fan favorite out here to try and reclaim their spot in the SPL.
Yeah, the Oni Homies are an SPL team.
They
legitimately, they're just the Oni Warriors. For those of you who weren't watching last year, why weren't you, first off? Secondly, it's Nika, Kubo Fred, Dardez, Neilma, and Vote. They're the favorite for a reason.
Yeah, I mean, this is former SPL team of the Oni Warriors. They had to drop the Warriors for now to go to the Oni Homies for this tournament. They're facing off against the FUNHAVERS. We'll have Winter Dogs and Duck Club right after that. And you can see these two teams in each of these. So I guess technically these 4 teams are competing for the last 2 spots to face off in that semifinal best of 5. The winner of that goes to the SPL. The loser has to make their run down through the lower bracket where there's still an opportunity for one of these 2 teams in this game to still make it into the SPL if they do not make it. But it's going to be a tall task down the bottom. And I mean, there's still 3 more series of games to be had down in the lower bracket here. So we're going to kind of start this, death segment talking about the Oni Homies. And I mean, how much more can we really talk about? There are probably a lot of things that we can really talk about it. But I mean, we just went through a whole year with these guys. Unfortunately, they weren't able to get that qualification back into the SPL coming through. They didn't make it into that World Championship stage. But ever since that time, they've had some time to kind of recuperate, kind of think about all their losses that they had during the season. They've come back a stronger team. I mean, yesterday or in their previous matchup, we saw that they were going down every single team fight in like the first 10-15 minutes of the game, but they were up like 4,000 or 5,000 gold for pretty much the entirety of it, Mifflin.
Yeah, it's just superior macro play. I'm not sure that the Oni Homies have legitimately been tested so far this week. It feels like they showed up and they said, look, we're simply just going to farm better. Our PvE is simply superior, so it doesn't really matter if we drop a couple of kills throughout the early. It is very clear to me that the Oni Homies are either holding some strats or just having some fun at this point, because the level of play that we've seen from them hasn't quite touched the peak that we've seen in the past. But I guess if we want to evaluate this team holistically, what was it that they were struggling with when they were playing at that SPL level against all the other teams? It was the ability to push leads. It was the ability to close out games quickly once they established these massive leads, because that is something they've consistently done at the highest level, is still macro farming, establishing these goal and experience gaps. It's just whether or not they can transition it into these neutral objectives very quickly, or transition it into early towers or early phoenixes. That's the one thing that I think is bottlenecking this team. I would love to see them try and close out some of these games a little bit faster.
Nice little trade-out kill here in this highlight by Vote, going up against Shinigami. The Samsara squad did give them a little bit of trouble in their first half of each of their games that they played out here. But kind of talking about, this mid lane, we've seen Dardez kind of transition to some of these newer mages. Agni kind of being one that's kind of jumped up in the forefront of everybody's mind. A god that we've been seeing a lot of bans of. Thoth has been seeing a lot of popularity. Very curious to see kind of where this mid lane and even where the rest of things will develop. We know how popular Circuit has been pretty much this entire week so far. And with a player like Kubo Fred, which is like his most played god, Mifflin, I can't imagine anybody's going to be giving him this god.
Yeah, I think that Surcat is an interesting topic of conversation, because sure, she still is incredibly strong in the jungle. Sure, Kubo Fred, one of the best Surcats to have done it. But I really think that this god's kit is support leaning. I know that we've seen some changes to her through balance that has tried to make her a little bit more so in the jungle. But with how the obelisk operates, that mobility is just so good for stealing flowers. And that's exactly what you want from your support.
Yeah, those obelisks have been a very key part. And kind of talking about the jungle and some of the changes that have come to there, we do have Kubo Fred standing by for our pregame interview. You get to talk to him a little bit. First off, congrats on making it this far so far in the tournament for you guys. You guys, if you win this set right here, you're then only 1 away from making to the SPL. I mean, how does it feel being that close to getting back to the SPL?
It's definitely awesome. I want to say that our game yesterday was not the cleanest. So, of course, there's a little bit of nerves making it clean. But, I mean, honestly, we believe in ourselves. And it also shown yesterday that when we just play our game and we don't do too many mistakes, we will just bring a good level to the scene. And, yeah, I'm super confident now, for sure.
Yeah, Talking about kind of cleaning up games, we do have a little clip from yesterday we want to show you, maybe kind of ask you about here, Kubo Fred. What was going through your mind on this little play here over in game number 2? You just kind of face tanked right into an Ares ultimate and then right into Thoth.
Okay, so what happens here is that the Ares is actually CCR from the Agni stun, so he can't get picked up in my jump stun. So that's what happened there, and I'm in my head. I mean, obviously it's a bit greedy. It's a bit like playing with fire into Ares, no beats. But I mean, yeah, honestly, that's kind of the vibe yesterday. A bit too greedy, a bit too loose. So honestly, we just tighten it up today, tighten up tomorrow.
Oh yeah, for sure. All fun having out here, and you know, if you guys are able to win this set, you have Duck Club or Winter Dogs to kind of face off against you guys in that semifinals. Of those two teams, which of those ones would you rather face off against?
Honestly, I don't really care. No, I don't. Like whoever is the better team is gonna win, I think, and whoever we meet, we're gonna do our best. So honestly, I don't care. I'm just excited for some good smite. We've scrimmed both teams, and honestly, it could go either way as far as I'm concerned. I think maybe the SCT team has a bit of an edge because they've been together for longer and they always have shown they're a good team. But I think, yeah, it's definitely gonna be close. I'm excited.
Well, I'm excited to see how this game and see how future sets go for you guys. Thanks for spending time with me. I'll let you get back with the team, and good luck, Kubo.
Thank you so much. Take care.
Having some fun. Playing with fire against an Ares with no beads. Probably the most dangerous call that you can really make there. But all fun to be had here for the Oni Homies. Again, they are trying to reclaim their spot to being that Oni Warriors SPL team. And kind of going up against this FUNHAVERS squad, they were able to get a win early on in the week. I believe that was up against nobody's favorite, if I'm not mistaken there. They were able to get that win. And now kind of talking about the FUNHAVERS specifically, going across the board here, we talked about Kubo Fred a lot in the jungle. I think we got to talk about Magic Feet, the alpha of this team that has kind of just exploded out of nowhere, Mifflin.
Yeah, and he's got so many new fans as well now. No Twitter, so you can't even follow him. I guarantee you, when he goes home, he's going to have like 800 friend requests of like people just like, I just really want to hang out with you, man. Because he's legitimately a very talented player who has got a great personality for interviews as well. But I think when we want to evaluate this squad, we should evaluate it holistically. And because they're a newer team, as Kubo kind of alluded to a little bit earlier, it's Uzi, Magic Feet, Joshi, Oceans, and Tuba, with some SEC talent, some Smite Console League talent, and a little bit of SPL talent as well. It's a squad that I think is got some pretty high expectations. I think that this is a team that can certainly try and exploit some of the weaknesses that I was bringing up about the Oni Homies a little bit earlier on, because when I look at these guys on the FUNHAVERS, it's a lot of players that like to get aggressive early, who like to push the lead, who like to play aggressively, as Kubo said, play with fire, you know what I mean? That a willingness to kind of go for these high-risk, high-reward plays. That seems to have been the SPL's answer to this slower, methodical style that the Oni Homies have been playing. So potentially this could be a good matchup for the FUNHAVERS. It's just whether or not that veteranship and just raw talent that the Oni Homies have is enough to overcome it.
I think if we want to talk about talent, my eyes kind of go towards Oceans here. He's been playing so many different roles throughout his career. He was a hunter player in his short time during the SPL. He transitions over to mid for a short time, now coming back over into support. And really a couple of these players kind of making these transitions. But before we go any further, we do have a tweet from Neil Ma. I get to play against the no Twitter Magic Feet today. I have so many questions. Who is he? Where is he from? Where does he eat his breakfast this morning? Truly a man of mystery. Stay tuned for details. And maybe we will get to stay tuned for some details about Magic Feet, because he has kind of been a mystery, just kind of popping up here and playing lights out, honestly.
Yeah, just tall, dark, and mysterious, right? God, I want to know more about that guy. You know what? If he qualifies in the SPL, we'll learn some more. I'll make sure the fans at home are satiated.
We'll get to learn a little bit more about him, but we'll also get to talk to Tuba for a little bit for our pregame interview as he's standing by so we can discuss here. First off, congrats on making it so far into the tournament so far. You are also only one set away from a qualification game. Does that put any kind of pressure on you or your team? You're going to be in kind of as the underdogs here up against the Oni. Does that maybe relieve some pressure or add any pressure?
Honestly, I think it's all on them, because we are here to have fun, do our best, put on a show, do whatever we can do. And then Nika knows I'm just kryptonite. So it's like, you just know how it goes. Why be worried?
Being the kryptonite.
Play my best.
So Mifflin told me kind of right before we came in here that you used to be part of a squad back in the console days with him and Bobby, the dad bod squad. Tell me a little bit about that.
Remember, young man?
I don't know. I was in SCL since season 4.
Oh, I was in season 4. You were with me, bro.
Seems he doesn't have
I don't
much.
know.
Am I getting ego?
No, the only team I played on was One Night at LAN.
You might be getting ego.
I got ego,
potentially,
bro.
or
No,
maybe you're just misremembering.
it's his memory. It's his
He might
memory.
just be misremembering.
You know, he is.
He
Yeah.
really was.
You were with Air Cougar, right?
Yeah, we
Yeah.
weren't on the same team, but it was like a squad of homies. You know, we were the boys. We went to like the sauna. Don't.
I've never been here before.
All right, whatever.
I don't know what you're on about.
Whatever, man.
He's really just getting him out here. Look, I asked Kubo Fred this, and he kind of gave me the answer of it doesn't really matter here, so I want to kind of get your thoughts here. You win this setup against the Oni Homies. If you win this one, you're going up against either the Winter Dogs or Duck Club. Is there any preference on which of those two teams you'd kind of rather face for that chance to make it?
I mean, I'm rooting for the Winter Dogs myself, so I wouldn't want to play them. They're all my boys. Definitely the Duck Club.
Definitely going for the Duck Club here. Maybe any surprises that we might see in this set, or you think you guys going to keep it pretty standard?
We got some content.
Oh, they
We
got
got
some
something.
content.
Some
Well,
content.
We got something.
a little bit of content here. Well,
Yeah.
thanks for standing by for the interview. I'll let
Thank
you get back to the guys, and we'll be expecting some of that content out here, too.
You
But
will. Thank you.
he just kind of left you out there.
Hey,
left you
it'd be
hanging
like
there,
that,
man.
bro. You know,
it
it's whatever.
happens sometimes, Mifflin. It's okay.
Well, he's not reinvited. Next time I go to the sauna, I'll go without him.
Anyways, coming back here with FUNHAVERS, we get ready to kind of get set up for game number 1 as these teams go back and get themselves prepped for the picks and bans. One of the picks that was very consistent with Magic Feet, where he was really popping off, was this Kleena. But we've been seeing pretty much nothing but bans on this god so far, Mifflin. It seems that finally, after we saw her kind of break out during the qualifiers towards Worlds, we didn't see her at all during World Championship. And now here in Season 9, she seems to be a real favorite in this jungle role.
Yeah, she's just so versatile, man. These gods that just apply damage have been kind of popular throughout the entirety of the jungle's career, right? When you think of just gods that deal damage, Bastet comes to mind. Now that she's got some buffs, she's really strong as well. Camazotz as well is just, we deal damage and we're good at it. It transitions to team fights, it transitions to objectives. All these things really add up. And I think that Kleena is kind of the new age embodiment of that style, in that if you pull a lead in the early, you can just like straight up 2-3 items into your build, solo a Pyromancer, solo a Gold Fury with that damage output from tearing the veil. So I think it fits Magic Feet's style. I think it fits the FUNHAVERS style of this kind of like looser, where you just got to do whatever's nearby. You know, we can make plays. I think that it definitely fits exactly what Magic Feet is looking for.
And kind of talking about Camazotz, in this patch that we're playing on, he did receive 2 different nerfs. He got a nerf in the cooldown time, both on his ultimate, scaling initially from only 100 seconds to 120 to 100, and then his leap also got 2 seconds at the initial rank, scaling back down to its. Do you think that's affected the amount of Camazotz being played? Because we've seen a lot of bans, but we've only seen, I think, 1 game so far of him being played.
Yeah, I mean, CDR changes really are mainly quality of life in my mind. You take a couple of seconds off an ultimate, I don't really think about it. You know what I mean? You build your Jotun's Wrath regardless. You go for the Hydra's Lament, now that has 10% pen on it as well. And you just get that CDR essentially for free in the jungle. You're not really having to itemize towards it. So I think that it will affect him slightly in that it's his ultimate and his leap, both his escape abilities, survivability. One of the main strengths of Camazotz, taking a hit might drop him a little bit in the power rankings, but I'm a Camazotz supremacist, man. I think that god's going to come back at any moment.
I mean, we've seen a lot of crazy things from that god in the times past, especially in the very end of last season. But kind of going over here to Oceans, some conventional picks, some less than conventional ones. We saw the Gilgamesh support yesterday, something that really the North American SCC really loves to run. Blugan and Gamma specifically, 2 players that kind of pioneered that warrior over in that lane, specifically kind of jumping over to support. Do you think maybe as we jump into picks and bans, we'll see a little bit of that kind of fun content from these guys?
They said content, you know what I mean? Like, what's the content really? I'm expecting, like, I don't know, Sylvanas mid?
I mean,
like,
well, no, nobody's favorite already did that.
That's
just,
still content.
That's just recycling old content, though.
Yeah, I mean, that's like the meta for YouTube and Twitch right now, right? So do it.
Game number 1, picks and bans. FUNHAVERS will have first pick, Oni Homies second. And talking a little bit about this RDO ban here, because it's specifically with the player Uzi here on the side of the FUNHAVERS. This is kind of his style of play, his meta of play, is the RDO, the Nike, Odin, Cthulhu. You get those 4 gods when they're meta. Uzi really loves to pop off, and Oni Homies are taking a little bit of respect and taking that RDO out right away.
Yeah, I think they're right to do so. Of the 3 picks that you just listed of Uzi's god pool, essentially, RDO is the one that's going to plug and play into the most rosters. It's the one that's going to fit into the most drafts. It has the most consistent output. If you're going towards a Cthulhu right now, I don't think you're feeling so great about it. That god has seen a lot of nerfs, some of the itemization, new Sunder, as well as something that makes it really hard to perform on Cthulhu. We saw how the neighborhood found their answer to that pick. It was the Nemesis. So there still certainly are answers to that. And Odin, I think he just got inadvertently nerfed, man. You don't have to itemize towards Phantom because you just go down the shell tree anyway nowadays. which is something that most supports are going for just because it's such a great stat stick for inside the team fight, that Odin just doesn't feel like he's getting as much value as he once did.
Well, the first 5 bans so far as we wait for the Oni Homies to get their last one in there. Cirquet, no surprise, Kubo Fred absolutely loves this god. It does have a lot of those support aspects that you were highlighting earlier, just in case Neil Ma may have wanted to play those. Muzenkov and Kabrakin, who has had an immense amount of popularity this land so far. And then Ardio, Izanami, and Zeus, which we saw 3 games in a row earlier on. He'll finally be taken off the tail. But that does leave Amaterasu, who has been probably the biggest favorite god to be picked up during this event.
God, she's just so good. The mobility, the silence, the ultimate, the sustain in lane. Now with a new Shogun / Berserker shield build as well, you get a lot of damage and survivability very quickly on this god. Her versatility around neutral objectives as well makes it so hard to want to play against her. It's something that the Oni Homies are going to be very familiar with, though, because we know that Nika has got a lot of tenure on Amaterasu, and I'm sure he knows how to lane against it as well. I like what we see from the Oni Homies already, though. Fenrir and Gilgamesh acting as your front line, both very aggressive picks that should be able to stack up against that early style that the FUNHAVERS like to go for. Seems like both these teams have been doing a lot of their homework.
Persephone comes out here, and we've been seeing a lot of buzz around this god. So far, nothing but success when she does make it in. 2 games played, 100% win rate, but a 52% ban rate. Probably the more interesting little tidbit there. So with how little she's made it in, she has seen success. But over to this other side here, Bastet locked in, and it seems to me with this, Nika wants to go back to the strategy that he pulled in his last set, where he just lets Kubo and Neil just kind of go these full tank routes, and he just gets to play the assassin all to himself.
Yeah, lots of damage output, good poke. I'm curious to see how Bastet's going to line up against Amaterasu in lane. Bastet obviously has the superior ability to just kind of apply poke from a range and then disengage immediately, whereas Amaterasu kind of wants to stick to you a little bit longer, use those auto attacks a little bit more so. So I think Soul Lane going to be something I'm keeping my eye on for sure in this first game. And this does open up the door for Kubo Fred to go back towards that tank style that you were talking about. And I think that is Kubo Fred at his best. This guy is a very, very adept initiator for his team, and then finding a way to somehow keep him in the jungle and keep him playing that style of play is very intelligent. I think the Oni Homies, again, have got themselves a very strong top 3. My concern for now is their ability to apply CC consistently. Bastet, single target CC with that ultimate. You're only burning beads off one guy. Fenrir's Ragnarok, essentially the exact same thing. Dropkick, best case scenario, you're hitting like 2. At superior, like best case, you're getting like 3 stuns with a dropkick, but that is very inconsistent. I want to see something to round out this draft that can burn away those beads a little bit more.
And seeing Bastet and Fenrir on the same team, Bastet's ultimate essentially acting like a ranged Ragnarok, which might be one of the scariest phrases I can throw out there. And then Gilgamesh, obviously. So you got a lot of single target lockdown here between these 3 gods. It's all going to be a matter of what single target that they decide to lock down. Sol and Yemoja banned by the Oni Homies, recognizing that Yemoja has still made it this far in the draft. And I'm still surprised at maybe the lack of the Yemoja, but something you alluded to kind of earlier in the week was because of this Phantom now being on the end of the shell and with that being so prominent, maybe dissuading teams from going away from that god. But Thoth and Agni, the final bans here for FUNHAVERS, absolutely no surprise with the performance these 2 mages have had this weekend.
I think Agni and Thoth might just be my favorites in the mid lane right now. I mean, just the Spear of Desolation, Divine Ruin build makes them deal so much damage. They're so good at applying that poke from a range that not many other mages can kind of play from. You've got great scaling into the late game. They both utilize the new Rada Tahuti very well as well, so great bans from the FUNHAVERS. And Agni in particular would have helped out a lot with that CC that I was talking about from the Oni Homies. The Noxious Fumes, I know it's only like a 0.75 second stun. That's still enough. That is enough time that a lot of these guys are going to have to put respect on it, and it's so easy to find that stun from a range. So a good ban to make sure that they're going to have to dig a little bit deeper. The Oni Homies, that is, to find their CC.
Charybdis locked in on the side of the Oni Homies, a god that we have not seen yet this weekend, and does have some potential flexibility, whether you take that into the mid or the dual lane. We've seen a little bit of both, though typically we do see that paired with a magical hunter, typically, if you are going to put that one in the mid-roll. But Oni Homies will have to wait until their final pick. And it goes back over to the FUNHAVERS. The cleanup we kind of talked a lot about as we jumped into the picks and bans right before, kind of the prowess that Magic Feet had on this god. Persephone, we've talked a lot about, kind of slotting her way in with some of these new builds. And then Horus getting locked in. And I'm not at all surprised of how much Horus we've been seeing, especially after the buffs that we've gotten. I'll hold my breath for now on this Scotty pick until we see if it actually does get locked in. But I've really been loving what we've been seeing out of Horus this week.
Yeah, I think Horus is a pick that we're going to see a lot of. He really does use that new breastplate really well. He does a lot of damage. He's got great repositioning tools. He's kind of similar to the Fenrir/Surcat support in that he's so mobile. He's very adept at applying or stealing away those flowers. This is a weird draft.
Really?
From the Oni Homies. This is a very strange draft. Quadruple physical, but you've got decent defense shred from Charybdis. From that second ability, so you're not too worried about going quad fizz. But generally when your last bit of magical damage is coming out, you want something that's going to apply consistent large bits of damage that can make use of that lacking magical defense from the other side. Aphrodite does not necessarily come to mind for that style of play. It's more so now you've got tons of survivability, right? Like Undying Love is going to make anybody have additional beads/Aegis built into the same button. You've got a decent front line to attach to. Fenrir, Gilgamesh, Bastet, all great kiss targets. Charybdis going to be left alone in the back line because of the dive core of the Oni Homies, but leaving a Charybdis alone is okay because she's just like super, super survivable with a CC immune ultimate as well. But this is weird, man. This is a weird draft.
I thought we were past this meta, man. I thought we had finally gotten rid of the healers. I thought Aphrodite was finally gone, especially because with this double flat pen build that's coming in the mid lane, Divine Ruin is more often than not the second pen item alongside that Spear of Desolation. I thought maybe we'd seen the last of the healers here in Mifflin, but the Oni Homies, they're just not going to let it go.
Hey, why would you? You know, what was it that Dave said earlier? If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Aphrodite is a god that's been working for the Oni Homies pretty well throughout the last couple of years. I'm not sure the power curve. I'm still trying to rack my brain for the Oni Homies, like what portion of the game they are going to be best at playing. I think it still might be the late game, but the FUNHAVERS having a much more standard composition is going to help them out a lot. They can split up their defense a lot better. It's going to make the Oni Homies have to concern themselves with both physical and magical defense, whereas FUNHAVERS really, I don't think, have to respect the damage output of an Aphrodite. I'm curious to see. I think the Oni Homies kind of have to like run it down early, actually. Fenrir, Gilgamesh, Bastet, yeah. And try and go towards those objectives very early on.
It's a team that may be centered kind of towards the latter half of the game, but definitely want to get things going early here. But if that's the way that they want to play is kind of towards this late game, they're fine with that because they did it all in their previous set where they just let the game happen around them for the first 15, 20 minutes or so. We'll see if this odd composition here out of the Oni Homies can work out for them in game number 1, or can the FUNHAVERS take it away?
It's the tournament favorite Oni Homies up against the FUNHAVERS, hoping to play spoiler in this I knew I said knockout, not knockout, best of 3, but the winner of this one will move on with a chance to qualify to the SPL tomorrow. Dolson, Gourmizer, it's been a little while, buddy, and Doug bringing us all the views for game number 1.
I'm excited for this one. I think it's going to be really interesting to see what the Oni Homies have in store. Nika has gone back to this Bastet solo. It was kind of nuts. The lad, like, I don't know how else to describe it. It was just disgusting when he played it last time.
What did he say in the post-game interview? Like, that's just how, because I imagine it'll be full damage, right?
It was the conversation, because I think at the time it was the Bastet solo with a Fenrir jungle. Kubo had played Fenrir that game. Gilgamesh, it's going to make a little more sense. But the Fenrir, he had built pretty much full tank.
Also.
Kubo's probably going to build full tank.
Is he going to... Oh, I want to return to that at some point here. He's got teleport.
This is going to be an early gank. They're going for kills.
Yeah, he's got teleport, so he's going to miss blue. We'll see if Magic Feet even bothers to go drop the blue.
No way.
I've been begging for someone to make a play on this side of the map all year long.
Let's
and
go.
now Uzi is here. It is a level 1 gank in the duo lane, but will it work out? Yes, it will. Tuba, he's got first blood, and Uzi will TP to tower, and blue buff awaits. Magic Feet holds it even. What a jungler. And what a play from the FUNHAVERS. I can't imagine the Oni Homies are having much fun as he makes it happen on the left side.
I mean, I love that. I love that so much. I don't think that's something you could do every game, and you couldn't do it 2 in a row. But man, do I love how well that works. And that's something that teleport enables that you just don't get unless you have that relic. Otherwise, Uzi's missing out on so much farm trying to just exist over there. But an early kill sets you up for success that slows down this lane. I mean, Neil's playing Fenrir, and now he's going to have to feel a little more awkward about when he wants to engage. That's a good call from FUNHAVERS. Plus, talk about an early gold lead. You're at least going to be able to kick things off with the first blood bounty.
You wonder, though, now is there a window open? I want to see. I imagine, even with that wave.
It is a little cold in here.
Here's a stiff breeze rolling in. Neoma has to jump away. And this is what, you know, early aggression starts to maybe roll into. I would give Tuba and Ocean's lane priority here. Neil just hasn't been able to play the way you want to. But my question was now this.
Yeah.
Where Uzi rotates to duo, level 1. Not even rotates, just starts there.
He was hanging out, yeah.
It looks like maybe a half level behind Nika now in that lane. So maybe there's these small windows where Nika potentially has lane priority over on the right side of the map. Whether that's because Uzi was on left or that's just the nature of this matchup, it looks like Nika is going to maintain about a 1-level lead throughout this laning phase. So if Nika can capitalize, maybe an opportunity to punish the early rotation from Uzi.
And that's the thing I think that's going to come to fruition. We were talking before Uzi and the shenanigans that happened in duo lane. One of the things that this Bastet's probably going to do is just build full damage. That's what the post-game interview was with Nika, where he just said, that's just how you play Bastet. It is simply that you either kill a whole lot or you don't at all. And I think being able to have her available on damage there is going to be a big deal.
Magic Feet, the Twitterless Wonder, is on the right side of the map. Uzi continues to take chunk damage, but Nika will stay far enough away. Blue buff is going to respawn here shortly, and I think that's important for Uzi as well. On the level 1 gank is that the blue buff was still there. It was waiting. It doesn't mess up your cooldown, doesn't mess up the jungle rotations, anything like that. So the FUNHAVERS are still able to make good use of that early play. Nika, no good on the ultimate. Had to have been a kill there if that connected, because Uzi did not have the dazzling offensive. And so that might have been the window, Gore, where Nika hits level 5, Uzi is low at level 4, and Nika might have been able to punish and grab a kill, trying to do so anyway. Magic Feet in behind Nika. Nika takes a little bit of damage from the tower. God. Uzi doesn't die. Not sure Magic Feet will be able to capitalize himself. And playing with fire is Uzi. Doesn't get burnt this time.
I love how Nika's still playing this, though. I mean, look at that. He's aggressive. I mean, Magic Feet's here. Magic Feet probably has better cooldowns going for him right now, but he's still willing to fight. And I like the fact that Nika is playing as aggressive as he is, even if it's not quite affording him the kills. The thing that has been going the way of the Oni Homies, at least what we saw in their set the other day, was really the farm game outside of kills and damage. I mean, we saw them up against Samsara to the point where they were getting bodied in team fights, but they had a 3,000 gold lead. I think that's something that you have to be aware of and conscious of right now if you're FUNHAVERS, is watching where the farm is going for the Oni Homies, how they're playing this game, because they are more than happy to slow you down and just hang out and get some gold.
Yep.
And ultimately, it's still about a first blood bounty in favor of FUNHAVERS, so it's not like a huge deal. It is something that you have to keep in mind. I think late game, Nika is going to be able to do a lot on this pick in terms of carry potential. Same thing for Vote. Still a little thrown off by the Aphrodite, if I'm being completely honest. We'll see what Dardez is able to do. A lot of healing, a lot of savior potential for this pick, but it is very much an enabler for the rest of this comp as opposed to something that stands out on its own.
I do think Aphrodite gets like a bit of a Dardez bump in the tier list. You know, I think that this is one of those picks that Dardez
he's just real good at.
Really good at. Where you almost have to give the benefit of the doubt over to Dardez in my mind with the way that he's able to play Aphrodite. But, you know, I agree there's still, despite that, some hesitancy for me. I mean, it's the easiest first item Divine Ruin ever from Joshi.
Yeah.
I mean, you're building that early on anyway. But first, of course, when you're going up against Dardez. And so some of the healing limited already. And so, I'm curious. I'm going to follow along with the Aphrodite as this game goes on and see what Dardez is able to get done. And you mentioned Vote Gore. The Charybdis, not a pick we've seen at all this week. Unfortunately, the safety not quite online at level 1 when Vote got jumped on. But that will be something to follow as Ocean's looking for the shrine here. And we've seen plenty of supports die for it this weekend. You're going to hope to avoid that. And I believe Ocean's will be able to do so, except Kubo, Fred, and Dardez both here. Does the link with Kubo Fred give the Gilgamesh a little bit more credence to jump on in? Yes, it does. Winds of Shamash is down. The Grasp of Death on the wall off to the side. That's Ragnarok out from Neilma, but oh, there's way too much damage from the FUNHAVERS, and they grab 2 more. Kubo, Fred, and Dardez both down.
This is a great start for FUNHAVERS. I mean, you're shutting down a composition that theoretically should be good in the early game. A great first kill, but those 2 right there enable so much for them. You eat a lot of ultimates, you burn what Dardez is able to provide, but you open up the opportunity. Kubo doesn't have a lot of damage. Dardez isn't going to be able to output a lot of damage, whereas Magic Feet showcases exactly what Clean is capable of. A lot that gets thrown onto Oceans by the Oni Homies as opposed to any of the maybe more higher priority targets. And so just maybe a couple of missed judgment calls coming down from the Oni Homies, trying to force things where they might not have been, well, better to mess with. And so they get not only the kills, not only more gold in their pockets, they then strip away the obelisk and take some of those blessings to charge up their own scepter. And so it just feels like FUNHAVERS, this has been a solid 7 minutes for them.
All right. Now, I don't want to be alarmist, but this is something we've seen from this Oni Homies roster in the past. I mean, you can't count them out of games like this, not by a long shot. But this team, this roster, this SPL roster from last year, trying to get their own spot back in the SPL, has not been immune to having rough early games. And it's not even questionable decision-making on their part, but just not reacting well enough to what the enemy team is showing. The FUNHAVERS have been showing aggression. Level 1, I mean, nobody's predicting that, right? I mean, that's something I imagine that Neoma and Vote will keep their eyes open for in every game they play from this point on. But then that fight just now in the mid lane, that's something that the Oni Homies reacted to Oceans walking in, maybe overcommitted, whatever it might be. That has happened from time to time with this roster, but hasn't gotten completely out of control. Uzi has caught back up, though, over in the solo lane. This would be a gut punch to the Oni Homies. You know, you're already down by 1,000, 1.5K gold or so, and nobody from the Oni Homies is going to be in range. Gold Fury to the FUNHAVERS, and no Pyromancer for the Oni Homies to trade out with.
Yeah, it didn't even spawn yet. They have no choice but to hold on to that. And that is just a good call, I think, for FUNHAVERS. Take the advantage that you've managed to grab and just push it to the limit. You saw that Vote had backed. Tuba must have been calling that out. It's good communication. And it then showcases where some of the weak links are. And I think you touch on it very appropriately here. When I was on the backliners earlier this week, talking to Aggro and PBM, and I was the only person, I had said that there was like a 30% chance in my mind. And admittedly, I still think that number's a little high after the fact, but that was the number that came to my head. That's the one that I went out saying, that the Oni Homies might not qualify, right? And that's just because there's a lot of other good teams. FUNHAVERS is on that list, but I was thinking of Duck Club, Winter Dogs, all these other guys that really have some opportunities to upset them. But an upset here and ripping them away, forcing them to go to potentially to Sunday would be really big. And I think you have to look at the conversation you were having. What we saw to the at the time Warriors then, Oni Homies now, and what we've seen out of these 5 players. I mean, Nika has definitely been on the top of the world. Kubo and Neil Ma have literally won 2 championships there for Neil, one very recently for Kubo.
That's hard to do. Even one is hard to do.
And so it's all impressive, the tenure that this team has. And the fact that at any given point, I would argue every single player on the Oni Homies has been the top of the league in the SPL. But if you go back to look at last year or the last 2 years for some of them, that's been the cleanest.
Chance to make a play. Kubo Fred drop kicks Uzi against his own wall, but Kubo Fred looking much, much worse for wear out of that trade, despite having Dardez linked for a little bit of healing. His Chronos Pendant first for Dardez. Want to get those lovebirds out as often as possible. Pyromancer pulled by the FUNHAVERS. A steal would be a breath of fresh air for the Oni Homies. Pyromancer whittled down. FUNHAVERS secure the objective, but now Nika, he's got to leap out. Dazzling offensive on the other end. And it's an undying glove to just delay things. Magic Feet grabs another, but here comes the rest of the FUNHAVERS. Horus ult into the back line, and it's Uzi who will grab the second kill of this fight, and the FUNHAVERS continue to roll. Gormizer, we are in 5-alarm territory right now. If you're the Oni Homies, you are down by 4,000 to 5,000 gold at 10.5 minutes.
Yeah, this is something you have to find a mental reset for, and admittedly, maybe something on the map to reset into, because look at this composition. In a standard, and you can actually look at what FUNHAVERS are doing, fight, Oceans is setting up kills. He's got 5 out of 5 participations on every single kill. 3 out of 5 there for Joshi, and 4 out of 5 for Magic Feet. It is in the jungle that you mostly see a lot of this. Kubo has been a very hit or miss. Vote is someone that you have to rely on eventually, and he's getting bodied.
Vote with the Whirlpool kind of hangs out just a bit, maybe reading that his escape would have been cut off. That's a simple 2v1 for the FUNHAVERS. The left side of the map is a graveyard right now for the Oni Homies. Started at level 1, has continued on. Tuba on a 301 tear right now. And Magic Feet, Gore, this guy literally, he's come out of nowhere.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm incorrect in saying this is the highest tier of competitive Smite he's played. He has won his opportunity, and he showed up against one of the better rosters, if not the best in this tournament. Finally, something for the Oni Homies to pull back as Tuba will get shut down. Kubo Fred picks it up. Always going to feel good to get that shutdown gold. But I think Magic Feet has raised some eyebrows here this weekend. A newcomer in every regard. Doesn't even have a Twitter account. And my man is 2-0-2 here against what was last year's SPL Oni Warriors roster.
And I think the way they're playing this, I mean, look, this aggression is just perfect from them, right? Controlling Neil Ma, although they might turn it around.
That's a big turnaround from Neil Ma. The
He's
healing
alive?
is in. Aphrodite gets it done. Neil Ma running away, but Oceans will close the gap, but there is still no kill in, not just yet. Joshi grabs one onto Vote. Everyone alive from the FUNHAVERS, and 2 more kills roll. It looked like a turnaround moment for the Oni Homies, but it has been anything but. The FUNHAVERS make the play. They are not caught off guard. Magic Feet gets 2 more assists on 2 more kills for the FUNHAVERS.
I think that is a good pickup for them. Again, really, really close turnaround there for the Oni Homies. Just unfortunate that it didn't fully go into fruition. And that brings me back to what I was going to talk about earlier, which is that when I see this composition, Neil Ma and Kubo have to be big deals early on. That hasn't happened. It's 13 minutes in. That's already passed, and it's not made a difference. Dardez is not going to be your carry. That's just not what Aphrodite does. You see where Nika's player damage is. It's at 6,000. He is going to be where most of the kills get funneled through, and it's got to be between him and Vote. Well, Vote's at 0-3-0, and he's 3 levels down. And so really right now, you're leaning real heavy on the solo side. And I will say, every time I say that, when I look at this team, I have a flashback to last year. The entirety of the team is sinking and flailing in the water, and Nika, as an Odin at the time, just single-handedly drags the rest of them to victory. I mean, he'd had like top damage, top kills. It was absolutely nuts. So we know he's capable of it. But that's not how you want to win this game, man. You really want to be able to clean this up and get everything a lot more even.
He's building damage, of course. I think Nika realizes it's time to stack that Transcendence. Time to get some farm online. Nothing's going to be happening for me. Not when we're 7,000 gold down 14 minutes into this game.
Ouch.
And so we need a little time to get the wheels spinning. And we just hope that the left... it's a hefty something, Gore. It's a Scrooge McDuck pool size pile of gold coins that the FUNHAVERS are up right now. You wonder, because you think back to when this game was like, what? 2,000-3,000 gold separated, maybe even lower. The FUNHAVERS just for free got that gold fury.
Yeah.
Oni Homies wanted nothing to do with it. Now the Primal Fury's up, and you're down further in gold. I mean, losing another big fight might just end this game. Is it worth the roll of the dice? I think the positioning of the Oni Homies says no, and a Primal Fury goes over to the FUNHAVERS that'll expand out this gold lead just a bit further. But where is this Horus ultimate going? 3 members. They're going to drop right on Dardez and Kubo Fred off to the right side. Down they crash. Luckily, swift enough is Kubo Fred.
I mean, so that's a play that actually works out no matter what, because you get such a fast transition over here. Pyromancer just now spawned up, and that was like perfect timing on their part. Either you get a fight and you win, or you get a Pyromancer. Either way, you're going to be happy. They might even get more. What is this macro
play? It's not score. I mean, this is the shot calling is near perfect. All right, I saw some icons going into the Fire Giant pit. I'm thinking, all right, fellas, we don't want to fly too close to the sun here. As he does take damage from Nika. You're right, Gore, to bring up Nika. Now a big power spike, fully stacked Transcendence. Crusher is there as well. These are the moments where Nika, cracks the knuckles and says, don't worry, fellas. Oni Homies, you hop on the back, and this is where things can turn around for us. But Everywhere else on the map is struggling. Neoma, not happy with the state of the game. Jumps in, immediately jumps out. Dardez, health bar, gone, halfway. He has got to back up, use some of that Aphrodite healing the best that he can. Neoma, Ragnarok finds nothing. Uzi had to use the beads and the dazzling offensive. At least Vote in the meantime knocks down a tier 1 tower on left. They are spooling up the gold into the AD carry, are the Oni Homies. You hope, if you're Vote, that your team doesn't get caught off guard by this, but you see Vote on left, Gore, we can pull the FG.
I mean, this is nothing short of just impressive shot
Wow,
calls
they're gonna
overall.
leave.
Yeah, and I mean, their best bet is honestly to get out of there. If you go into that fire giant pit, Nika's over in the right-hand side. You've got 3 people, maybe 4 of you, make it in there. But without Vote, I just don't know that you have the potency to take a 5-on-4 fight, especially not as behind as they are. I mean, this is nothing short of impressive from FUNHAVERS, right? I mean, good gold play, good macro play, good map play, and it all comes from everywhere. From the play at the very beginning, having Uzi just start off killing Vote, and that gets them a small lead, but that's nowhere near enough to really showcase the rest of this game. It's Ocean's ults, the way they're using this Horus to traverse the map, where Magic Feet has been, and just the presence of this Kleena, as well as this Amaterasu in these team fights. It's just given the Oni Homies way too much to deal with, and unfortunately, they haven't been able to figure it out. Again, I would like to see Kubo step up to the plate, but right now, it just doesn't feel that the skill match is going to get anything done. Yeah. And so you are waiting. You mentioned the power spike for Nika. It's almost got to be him. He's got to be the guy. Soon enough, we might be able to see Vote, depending on whether he decides to pivot now into that Wind Demon, get some crit online, maybe have a little bit more punch to his hits. Or if he just goes for something to try and kill. Unfortunately, they're just not getting a lot of gold. There's deficits all over the map. This is a hard spot to be in if you're the Homies.
Right, it's brutal because, you know, the desire to not contest any objective started at the first Gold Fury of the game when we were barely, you know, the Oni Homies were barely down much gold. And now, you know, just the threat of fighting has kept the Oni Homies away from every objective from that point on. And so it's 8-1, a lot of those kills happening in like small little jungle skirmishes. It's just the threat. And this is something we always talk about, is where do you draw the line? Yeah. The line didn't get drawn on either of the Furies. The line hasn't been drawn on a Pyro. The line was back in your base on the Fire Giant. I doubt you're fighting for a tier 2 tower. I guess, Gore, at 11,000 gold down, Phoenix has got to be something. Maybe you're hoping the Titan. This 11,000 gold worth of assistance if you're fighting in your base.
Yeah, you're going to need it. At this point, I mean, I see an upgraded glyph just now bought for Nika. He went for the Jotun's Vigor, which is going to be helpful. Again, little power spikes, but it's only so much in the grand scheme of things. I need to see what he's going to be capable of doing. The good news is, you mentioned Phoenix defenses. It's pulling everybody together. Nika has a higher % chance of hitting his ult here, more chance to get damage out there. Neil can control it. This is a good spot for the Homies to be in. And if FUNHAVERS don't get a clean engage on this, this is where things can really bounce back from.
Big power spike for Joshi as well. Obshard and Charon's coin completed. Percent pen and flat pen all online. Magic defense be damned, and the FUNHAVERS want to go now. Frenzy used, but Neoma, he is evaporating. He's got no defense. He can't live. Kubo Fred has found the back line and actually doing a whole lot, but now the eyes have been turned. Can the Oni Homies regroup? Undying Love connects at the perfect time. Big stun out of Vote, and the initial attack is repelled, but we have lost Neoma. Nika's half HP. Oni Homies limping away, but the left side Phoenix goes down.
And that's really what you want to get out of this. 45 seconds left. Actually, they have plenty of time that is still remaining on this power play. But I happen to see a Gold Fury that's coming back up. I see a Horus ult that is setting themselves up for that exactly. Again, it's just traversal of the map and reading the macro right now that the FUNHAVERS are leading over the Oni Homies. I mean, I can't understate or overstate how impressed I am with everything they've brought to this table and how well they've been playing. I mean, this gold lead, I mean, even if you win a Phoenix defense right here, you got to look at the state of the map. You know, you might have been able to set up for the next Fire Giant. Maybe you get a Pyromancer. Maybe you even get that Gold Fury, and you're still 10K down in the hole. If you're able to get aggressive, maybe you knock down that one tier 1. There's 3 tier 2 still standing, 4 towers up for FUNHAVERS. It's just, there's so much for Oni Homies to still have to get through. Yeah. That one fight almost doesn't cut it here. I mean, death timers will be very kind to them, but they have to get a huge swing in their favor to make it work.
I mean, the shot calling from the FUNHAVERS, the mechanical play that has made that shot calling work, all of it's been near perfect. this game. It feels like the Oni Homies' head just spinning around, trying to keep up with the calls that the FUNHAVERS are making, and just have not made much ground. You want to talk about a disparity in what feels horrible. Neoma has a Gauntlet of Thieves, and he just upgraded his Breastplate of Valor. And that's it. He's got 2 items, and you're a Fenrir who wants to jump in and pull someone back to your team. That Phoenix defense was very telling. Neoma can't do what Fenrir wants to do. If he jumps in and grabs someone, he just immediately melts. And it's brutal. You got this physical defense online, and Joshy just one-taps him because he's got flat pen and percent pen. A Soul Reaver, I believe, no, it's upgraded purification beads, but Joshy will complete a Soul Reaver here at some point. Hard to see a path back into this one, Gormizer, and it is the FUNHAVERS. We talk about the Oni Homies and them not meeting our expectations. FUNHAVERS have blown them out of the water, and they have given themselves this opportunity to take game 1.
The only death was that 2v1 up against Tuba and the duo lane that we saw like 10 minutes ago. At this point, it has been a while for them. And this is a fight I think you almost have to take. Oni Homies, you just saw that you can't do the defense.
Look at this health bar. If Neoma jumps in, you have to keep your eyes on it because it's not going to last long. Has to use jump and brutalize just to disengage. The Oni Homies have drawn the line, and it is around this Fire Giant. We are 22 minutes in. They are down by closing in on 18,000 gold. Uzi jumps in. Link out from Dardez on to Kubo Fred for a moment. Neoma just trying to spread a frenzy to the rest of his team. He brutalizes in. Can you get a kill out of Tuba? No, you can't. In Magic Feet,
look at Kubo,
the newcomer on a killing spree. Let's get something going. Kubo Fred snags a kill on a Tuba on the back line. Undying Love is now out. Stun for Motions, connects on Nika. The knockup is there as well. What is happening? The Oni Homies turning this fight around. The carries are still alive. Aphrodite going massive in this fight for the Oni Homies. Vote is still there. Nika is as well, and it's a 3 versus 3 around the FG.
Yeah, you don't get to see a lot out of Magic Feet just yet. I mean, we've seen some cooldowns, but the damage hasn't been there. And unfortunately, they took a lot of damage from that Fire Giant, that debuff being spread to a lot of members. FUNHAVERS jump into that fight with maybe too much gusto, and they lose a lot of their carries. Again, it's a small opening for the Oni Homies, but it at least opens something and creates a conversation for them to get aggressive. Are they going to get a tier 2 out of this? No. Are they going to get a Pyro? No, that was taken by the FUNHAVERS. Gold Fury? Nah, it's not even on the map. You don't get anywhere near as much what you need to balance this out, but it's something, right?
Yep.
That's a step in the right direction. That means, in my mind, that they're going to be able to open this conversation. You've got 100+ seconds on 3 out of the 4 relics for the 2 carries on FUNHAVERS. It's 80 seconds on the other one, so you're going to be perfectly fine being able to get aggressive.
Yeah, Vote's got both of his actives.
He's happy.
That's the survivability aspect of this draft. Yeah, I'm not thrilled. I'm happy I didn't die.
That hurts, though.
If I'm Vote. But the survivability of this team, Gore, the ability of the Oni Homies to survive that initial dive, that initial burst, the Undying Love delays some life. Vote with the Charybdis able to go into the Whirlpool, the ultimate for CC immunity. That's where you're seeing maybe some avenues for this Oni Homies team just to be obnoxious and survive.
The downside is, and you had kind of pointed it out, Fire Minions were running up the left-hand side there for a little while. And they're getting cleared out by Vote right now, which is going to be helpful with the Fire Giant starting up. But I lost the Phoenix a second time, which is just an unfortunate blow that they really wish they would have not liked to deal with. Yeah, that was the oof. And now they're fighting the Fire Giant.
Fire Giant down to half HP. Frenzy out. Fire Giant there. And it's the FUNHAVERS who snag it. Uzi using that dazzling offensive just to force the Oni Homies back. Nika not able to get back to base. Takes big damage from Tuba. Uh-oh. When Oceans is using the ult to teleport to you, life going to be hard to maintain. And goodbye, Nika. 55 seconds on the death timer.
I mean, Nika's the guy. Nika's the one that I was hoping and relying on. Maybe it can be Vote. Kubo did go big in that last fight. There's still opportunities for the Oni Homies. But it's a 4v5. Kubo's split pushing right now. The team is barreling down at your Phoenix. You're going to be fighting this at a disadvantage unless he can start his back about 5 seconds ago. So realistically, this is another good win for FUNHAVERS.
Far and away, the largest potential upset of the week. This is a team, the Oni Homies, everyone had chalk to go straight through the upper bracket finals and snag that Oni Warrior spot right back in the SPL. The FUNHAVERS want to put them backs against the wall. The FUNHAVERS walk into the Oni Homies base, but Dardez has found an opening kill. The Titan has not taken enough damage, but here it is. It's backloaded in this fight, and the FUNHAVERS put down the Oni Homies in game 1.
I mean, that is, again, impressive top 2 bottom. They start that game with a kill against the Oni Homies, and it feels maybe like it's something that's only going to be a one-off, right? You pick up a single kill because Uzi's chilling off in the duo lane, and that's going to be the end of it. You're not going to see too much else. And then they win the next fight. And then they get a Gold Fury uncontested. And then they just continue on that path. I mean, again, it was shot calling early on that really opens it up. A low impact mid from Dardez in the Aphrodite. A low impact Gilgamesh, not necessarily by metrics of the god, but mainly by metrics of the play there. That Kubo was not able to hit and get the kills online that he needed and the pressure that the team needed for that comp to work. And so I think go back to the drawing board. I don't think we'll see another kind of rollover like that from the Oni Homies, but that is not the way you want to start this set.
For the Oni Homies, there is a crumb of pressure off in the sense that you're still in the upper bracket. You're not going to the SPL if you lose this set. I think, you know, that shakes you a little bit, though. I mean, you come into this week, you're feeling good, you seem unfazed. Everyone has been hyping you up. It's been a fight for the second SPL spot out of this weekend. And the FUNHAVERS have now shown they can shot call at an SPL level. That is an incredible game one from the FUNHAVERS. They rock the Oni Homies. Game number 2, time for the Oni Homies to bounce back. Coming up right after this.
my best friend. Didn't care about the rules, good on the weekends. I'll be in fools, drifting to deep space. So brave and so stupid, just like the movies. I was gonna stay in the fight with you, just thinking we would do this until we couldn't do it. Each and every high, every night with you, you and me so clueless. We were just broken, shattered, singing along to nothing matters. Stray around like nighttime rumors. We were in too deep in your worn-out sweaters, thinking we'll be young forever. Driving in your mom's old hatchback, and we were in too deep. Cause I'm thinking we'll be young, be young, be young. Cause I'm thinking we'll be young forever. Cause I'm thinking we'll be young, be young, be young. Cause I'm thinking we'll be.
Well, the FUNHAVERS did say that they're going to have some content for us in this set. And what a way to start it out. A teleport level 1 gank over in the dual lane to start spiraling this game out of control right away. And the FUNHAVERS are the one who comes up over the former SPL team here in game number 1 to start with the lead in this set. It's J-Mac and Mifflin joining me here to break down game number 1. But Mifflin, that was just dominance across the board by the FUNHAVERS.
Yeah, I think that there was actually more layers to that level 1 gank than, oh, this would be so sick, we could just teleport back, we don't have to miss out on too much farm, which is true. But if you look at the laning phase and what was going to happen there, the Fenrir on the other side dominates Hachiman. That's a matchup that just rocks Hachi. But in putting him down at literally the 2-second mark, it really mitigates a whole lot of that loss. And it really made it easy for Tuba to transition himself into the mid game. I think had Uzi not been here at this point, it could have been a very different match for Neil.
I mean, this is going back. I mean, this is something that I believe it was FineOK was really kind of patenting right when the rank scene kind of came up with this new teleport, which was go straight over to the dual lane, you sit right behind that rock, and you pray that somebody's not a knower and throws a ward over there. And there was no ward to be had and no knowledge to be seen. FUNHAVERS kind of start this out huge. And I think this is kind of the first real testament to the lack of damage, or more so maybe kind of the abundance of damage that Kleena has specifically up against this squad. Matchy with a perfect Veil placement during that team fight. And great play across the board, a 6.0 KDA. And this is kind of where that struggle of what you were talking about earlier is, where is the damage really going to be coming from, especially from this mid lane?
Yeah, there really wasn't a whole lot of damage output. I think the entirety of the damage for this draft was really coming from Nika on this Bastet, and when you're playing from this far behind, it's super hard to be an assassin. You have to leap in, you leave yourself exposed for even a moment, you get instantly blown up. I just got to give shouts to Magic Feet, though. I want to sing the praises of the players that found a win here, and Magic Feet being a relative unknown coming into this week, and then performing like that against the Onis, just wild.
A little tweet from Nayu here, one of our SCC players. Casual mains are better than comp players. Mifflin, do you have any maybe thoughts to kind of throw with that?
Yeah, I played a whole lot of casual last year and only like 10 ranked games, but we got to talk about Jacob Malfoy. There's a lot of people. Even Neilma was an OG casual.
If Tuba makes the Smite Pro League, we might have to change the name of the league, says Layers here. In just one game, the FUNHAVERS have kind of turned the tides of favoritism here. Oni Homies were the fan favorites, kind of that expectation to make it here into the SPL. And in just one singular game here in this not truly semifinal game, it feels like it because the winner's finals, quote unquote, is going to be the next one. But they seem to have really pulled home a lot of fan favorites. Magic Feet specifically on this team has been gaining a lot of traction, whether that be because of the lack of the Twitter game or anything like that.
Alpha.
He's just a dominant player out here on the battlefield.
He really is, man. I wonder what Layers would like to call the Pro League. Layers, if you're listening right now, man, can we get a follow-up tweet? We'll talk about it during the next test. Just let us know what you would like to call the league if Tuba does make it in. Look, not everybody's going to fall for that level 1 gank. I don't think that the level 1 gank is necessarily what won them the game. It put you off on the right start, to be sure. But I think, if anything, it was a loss that the Oni Homies brought on themselves by Nika just legitimately never rotating out of that lane. We saw Uzi get involved, Gold Fury after Gold Fury, dual lane ganks, mid lane ganks, and was pushing his team further and further ahead. And I'd be, okay, well, where's Nika? What's he doing? I look over, man's like clearing waves between the towers, pulling a lead. He's getting ahead, but he never rotated out to use it.
And not doing anything with it. And going back to this full damage Bastet that he brought out earlier on into the set, you know, it's what Nika said. If I'm playing Bastet solo, I'm playing full damage. But when this Amaterasu in the lane against you, sure, you're getting levels up over, you're clearing waves and getting farm, but you're not able to kill this Ama like he was able to do against the Cerberus whenever he played this god last time. And this Ama is constantly teleporting out of lane, going to every single one of these team fights. Seems like the Oni Homies might need to go back to the drawing board for game number 2.
Yeah, I think so. Maybe just have Nika more so on that traditional warrior style play, and then have him kind of try and match some of those rotations that Uzi was bringing. Because, and I'm not even sure exactly when it happened. Both of them were the same level, Uzi and Nika, at level 9. But when you teleport back to lane like Uzi did at level 1, he was already about a level and a half down. Once Nika was level 4, Uzi was sitting at level 2. I blinked, and they were the exact same, and not much had really changed. I'm not sure where that farm came from for Uzi, but that's massive considering he'd put his whole team ahead, and then he brought himself back to even.
Able to keep that, and maybe kind of going back into this mid lane too. This Aphrodite got a decent bit of damage. Got, I think it was like 6k healing that Dardez was able to provide for the team. Well, kind of that lack of burst damage out there. I mean, you got a lot of slow bleed damage. You got a lot of very tanky targets, but not doing a whole lot of damage. I mean, Gilgamesh, Fenrir are able to put damage numbers out there, but it's kind of over that gradual bit of time. And when you don't have that traditional mage with this new flat pen meta that we've been seeing, it kind of puts a damper on that damage. We'll see what the Oni Homies change up here in game number 2, as they will be taking first pick this time.
Yeah, maybe they try and at least take away some of these big picks for the FUNHAVERS, specifically Magic Feet. I think you probably want to address this Kleena. We haven't seen him play much besides the Kleena so far this week, so at least forcing him down onto something a little bit more uncomfortable would be massive. Worth noting, the FUNHAVERS in the second pick position seem to have shown priority on that Amaterasu. They do not want to play against it, only with it.
I mean, this is a wildly successful god this entire tournament, Ama, so no surprise seeing that the second ban does not want to give that one away over to those who are on first pick side. Zeus, Artio, and then Serket and Amaterasu banned away so far. Looking very similar to what we saw last time, obviously, aside from the Ama, who was first pick last time for the FUNHAVERS. Oni Homies have some decisions to make here, and I think the biggest one that you were talking about is addressing Magic Feet. Do you think that a Kleena ban may be the call here for how much he's been able to just run free on this god?
I think Kleena ban, I wouldn't argue against it. If you feel like you can kind of draft around it and try and bring similar levels of pressure from your own jungle and try and kind of mitigate them that way, there are certainly options for that, but he's just been playing this god nonstop. It's the core of their objective-focused playstyle. When the FUNHAVERS are on a Gold Fury, it's because Magic Feet's 2 feet away, dropping the 2 Torn Veils and shredding 30% of its HP in just seconds. I think that it really would, a ban towards Kleena, that is, limit a lot of what the FUNHAVERS have been looking for.
Well, the one change in the bans this time around is the Kabrakan that didn't get banned. So instead, it will be a first pick for the Oni Homies. And now FUNHAVERS have a couple of questions to ask themselves and a couple of picks that they need to grab here. They could early on grab Magic Feet's god if they want to grab the Kleena early and maybe worries that it might get banned. They still have a couple of other picks they could go towards. Lots of supports up. Fenrir, notably, is still one guy that's been seeing a lot of popularity and has been seeing a lot of picks.
Yeah, Fenrir would be a decent option. I think it's a good takeaway. You almost utilize it as a secondary ban for the FUNHAVERS, but this Kabrakan is something I want to talk about for a moment, because last time we saw this pick for the Oni Homies, it was Kubo Fred out of the jungle, and he was playing that kind of sacrificial lamb style where he was just an initiator for his team, and he allowed everybody else to kind of get their damage off. But it is worth noting that Kabrakan has got pretty significant flex potential. It could go into the jungle, it could go into solo, it could even go into support. If we're being absolutely wild, we could say mid, but I think those first 3 really are the threats that Kabrakan generates. But to speak to your question as well, I don't think the FUNHAVERS have to take their Kleena here. I think they can get it in 3rd slot pretty easily. The Oni Homies have not shown me that they are willing to play that god. If anyone on the Oni Homies were to play it, I think I'd probably hedge my bets towards Nika. And I don't love Kleena in the Soul lane. So I think the FUNHAVERS can go ahead and wait a little bit on Magic Feet's pick.
Gilgamesh also still open, a god that has been seeing a lot of popularity even despite all the nerfs that he has received. Just such a powerful god in general, as well as Odin, something that Nika has popped off on in the past. They'll at least strip that one away and give themselves a strong solo lane option. And it seems that Magic Feet does want to grab his god now, so it will be Kleena paired alongside Odin for the top 2 picks of the FUNHAVERS. And if you're the Oni Homies now, you see Gilgamesh, Fenrir, those gods still open. Do you think maybe they go and grab one of those two or both? Well, at least grab one in Fenrir.
Man, if you just held for another second, I could have just said yes. You know,
That's true.
Man, I almost looked real smart there. Yeah, Fenrir lock-in makes sense. You got that early aggression. You're still able to utilize it the same way as you would have. This time, probably a little bit more so wary about a potential level 1 gank from Uzi in the duo lane. I think that there really wasn't an opportunity for this Fenrir to kind of play that laning phase because of how much that Uzi disruption factor came into play. So going back towards it, not something I'm going to argue against. Still a very mobile support that can steal away these flowers very easily. Has decent power scaling even if you go for a full defense build because of the Seething Howl. And Ragnarok is just a straight up good tool.
Horus, the final pick for the FUNHAVERS to round out some of the front line of their team. So Odin to the solo lane, Kleena in the jungle, Horus support locked in. So we now just need the 2 carries out of the FUNHAVERS. And this may be one of the most respectful bans we've seen this entire tournament so far. And on her ban, up against Dardez in that mid lane.
Yeah, just don't want to play against that pressure. Dardez has shown that he's kind of averse for going towards that standard mage style. I mean, he's playing Hunters or he's playing Aphrodite. That's just about it. I think Agni as well, a pretty strong ban here, would have fit that composition very well for the Oni Homies. So now we could see the Oni Homies still take a Hunter towards mid, assuming that this Soul is going into the long lane. If it's going to be like the Charybdis run back or something like that. It has a lot of survivability, doesn't have to worry too much about Kleena coming into his lane. Kleena doesn't really have the best ways to chase out that god. Not many gods really do. Kleena, or Charybdis rather, is just that safe. But I'm curious, man. The Oni Homies have been going for very Oni Homies styles of draft. And considering how quickly Game 1 got out of control, I'm not sure that just looking at what we've got in this top 3, that the Oni Homies can deal with that pressure that the FUNHAVERS were bringing.
Well, for the final bans here, before FUNHAVERS go in towards their picks, the Honor and the Agni, Persephone Ho Yi, and a Medusa. Another big pressure god, strong wave clear, and maybe even better boxing capabilities over in that long lane. Could flex towards the mid, but we've been seeing the Medusa a lot more in that dual lane. So pair that with the Horus, and that might be one of the more dangerous kind of level 2, level 3 lanes to really deal with. You get that stun knockup, and then all the follow-up from Medusa. But it's going to be Bastet one more time. And now with Kabrak and Fenrir Bastet, do you think that this one's going back over to Nika?
Yeah, I think so, man. Fenrir support, Kabrakan in the jungle, Bastet in the solo lane. I'd probably still put Chernobog in mid just because he's got decent box potential. And then you toss Soul over towards the long lane. The Medusa lock-in is something that happens because you already have the Horus on your side. If it were a support that couldn't deal with Fenrir as easily, I think that you go towards a little bit more so of a safe Hunter because Medusa doesn't really have an answer to the Brutalize. But Horus should be able to deal with it just about every single time and kind of facilitate Medusa playing that aggressive style. This Chernobog lock-in, though, it's raising my eyebrows a little bit. I'm pretty curious about how well that's going to perform in the early to mid portions of the game.
Well, the FUNHAVERS got my hopes up, and then they immediately crushed those hopes. Instead of the Opwash that was hovered, it will be Merlin as the final pick here for the FUNHAVERS. The lone magic damage on this team. And Mifflin, I posed this question to you with this 4 physical comp that the FUNHAVERS have. Typically when we see this, it's paired with AMC or Charybdis, someone that can really kind of shred through that Fizz prod to kind of make it worth it. Do you think that having the Merlin as the lone magic damage for this team is going to be enough for the FUNHAVERS?
Oh, yeah, I think Merlin fits that soul magic a little bit more so than like Aphrodite does. You still have consistent damage. Stance switch means you got a lot of abilities available to you. Looking at the FUNHAVERS composition, it also fits that objective burn style. Kleena plus Medusa plus Merlin with Gungnir's Might boosting attack speed. Gonna shut down objectives pretty quickly, but the same could be said of the Oni Homies with a double Hunter composition, 1 physical, 1 magical. I think that This time around, I am more so favoring the Oni Homies draft. I'm just not a massive fan of the 4 physical style unless you are getting that Charybdis or preferably that AMC. But the early game pressure that the FUNHAVERS have already got is building a little bit of confidence in me.
So now that we do see that it's going to be the Merlin here, we'll have to see where this Soul, where this Chernobog does end up. The Oni Homies need a win here in game number 2.
It's the FUNHAVERS on top after game 1. The Oni Homies need to win 2 straight. The FUNHAVERS only need 1 more out of the next 2 games to knock the Oni Homies down, not out, into the lower bracket of this SPL Season 9 play-in tournament. This would be, maybe, Gore, one of the biggest upsets I can think of in recent memory if this result holds, if the FUNHAVERS knock the Oni Homies down. And the implications for the rest of this tournament suddenly wide open as far as the upper bracket goes. But Oni Homies, a roster, Gore, not immune to games like game 1, which also means they're not immune to turning around sets like this.
Yeah, we've seen them win sets like this, where things have gone catastrophic. Granted, it's usually up against some likewise SPL teams. We'll see if they're going to be able to do so here against the FUNHAVERS. I'm actually intrigued because, we nailed at least the positioning of the Cabrakan, the Bastet, the Finrare. That makes sense because Cabrakan jungle is typically where Kubo would go here. It's the Chernobog mid that I think I was focused on.
They're doing it again.
No way.
Not with solo, but they send Oceans to mid.
No way.
And so we've left Tuba alone on the purple buff.
It's going to take him a while.
And look, Tuba is going around the backside to sort of shield where Oceans is. Not sure Oceans is going to get the advantage on this one. And so a look at a play. And so what have we done now? We've left some of the back camps open for Oceans to try to farm up on his own, maybe evening things out. As far as not having Oceans too far behind. So FUNHAVERS look like they're going to try something else that's unique, Gore. This time doesn't result in a kill.
And admittedly, it puts him a bit behind, a lot in the duo lane, realistically. Tuba having to defend on his own is happy that the tier 1 tower is very scary at 1 minute. Otherwise, this would be a free lane for Vote Neil. It's kind of a free lane. I mean, they were able to invade, get a Harpy, go back, get the side camp, go back, get their own Harpy. And so they're feeling confident in that. Did get a rotation for the FUNHAVERS, so they got the Oracle Harpies. Again, the back camps you had mentioned was split. And so at the end of the day, it's kind of equal. Ultimately, you just end up with Oceans a level behind for not necessarily a huge reason. Tuba actually a little bit ahead, and that's just because he got a lot of solo farm.
Yeah, a lot of solo farm. I think the most important thing for this game, for Neilma specifically, is being able to play the Fenrir like a Fenrir, right? I mean, by the time that game 1 was coming to an end, Neil couldn't do anything. He grouped up with his team and popped the Frenzy and hoped that something would turn around. Maybe a Ragnarok delays someone's movement for just a second. Being able to jump in, stick to a target, and stay alive is what a Fenrir wants to do. Just wasn't able to do so in game 1. The fact that we haven't fallen behind already, though, for the Oni Homies, an improvement from game 1.
Yeah, I mean, that was such a good start for the FUNHAVERS. And again, we had talked about it. Didn't get a massive lead by any means. It was just enough that
you can't hang it all on that one play.
It was a couple of plays throughout the duration, but you didn't get to see any of this. You never got to see Neil get aggressive and actually look comfortable doing so after that first blood. And so it does alleviate a lot of the pressure they were under. I think they can actually play their game this time. And you've got Vote on Soul relatively safe with the Fenrir, can get a lot of good damage out there. It balances out pretty well considering Medusa can box out, can clear decently well, but Oceans, when you're looking at Horus, he can set things up early on, but really it is that transition into late game and the control that he gets to bring to the map that is going to make a big deal.
The Oni Homies talked to me out in the lobby, and even yesterday in their set, about being a little bit more methodical, cool, calm, collected, really calculating each of their moves. I mean, obviously you want to do that every day of the week, but not the type of team that wants...
And most aspects of life.
Most aspects of life, right. but in the context of Smite game, they don't necessarily want to be the W key, run it down, always scrapping style of team. They want to be a little bit more calculated in the way that they're playing. And so the start of this game certainly would reflect a little bit of that. But a big spike now in the early game. Neilma ticks over to level 5, has Frenzy, has Ragnarok, and therefore has the ability to make some impacts on individual players. One set of beads over in the duo lane, that's on Tuba. Oceans has already used the blink. Mid lane beads are there as well. Magic Feet had to burn his set of beads, and so getting some of that CC immunity off the board early are the Oni Homies, and that'll help out Neilma and maybe identifying some targets.
And Magic Feet is the player that I saw the most tweets for after that last game, the most conversation around. Not at him. You can't reach him there. What was it? Again, every time I think about it, it's Auburn's tweet of him not being tethered, which is very true. But it's this cleanup play. That is something that I'm sure he is very, very happy with to be able to pick up again. It's just been nuts. He's been very solid with this, very good performance-wise. And so you got to keep your eyes on him. Losing that beads is actually a huge deal.
This is a big deal. Neilma not happy to have to leap out of this one. Petrifying gaze out from Tuba, but disapparate answers from Vote here. Neilma just takes a little bit too much in lane. We'll head on back to base and start rounding out that item. Looks like Sovereignty. Yep, first item for Neilma here. A lot of the early pressure Neilma is going to be facing is from one of the 4 Fizz that the FUNHAVERS have. And we've seen the early Sovereignty pay off in dividends. Obviously, I mean, it's an easy choice when you're going up against 4 Fizz. But now Neilma jumping into anyone but Joshi should feel a little bit more comfortable getting those physical protections online early.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be very helpful across the board, right? I mean, slowing down what has been a relatively aggressive Oceans. I mean, not so much this game, but what we just saw from Neil, it's going to at least open up that conversation. Also, good call on him to be able to split those Oracles. Make sure that it doesn't go all the way for free to FUNHAVERS. I also think we have to look over towards Nika again. Last game, we got to see him bully a little bit in lane, and then it never, extended beyond that, but that was more of the deficit the entire team was at than his own doing. And now I'd like to see him bully again, right? Go up, steal that Harpy, exactly like he just did, right? Continue getting aggressive and make Uzi feel uncomfortable. I think that's another huge win condition. The right side of the map for FUNHAVERS is a very strong portion of their game.
Sure is. Transcendence early on, though, Gore, and you talk about some scaling, playing a little bit more slow and patient. Transcendence early for Dardez here. So maybe you're hoping to hang out mid, not roll right away without assistance at least. And so Dardez needs some time to get that item fully stacked up. And I think it's important to look at how the shot calling around these objectives goes early. See if Kubo Fred is really all that worried. No, he's not. Neilma goes up, down. Ragnarok back in. Oni Homies first blood, and it's Kubo Fred who gets it.
What a stun!
It's a 3-man stun from Tuba. That is unreal. And Joshi is there to follow up. Tuba grabs one of his own as well. Oni Homies get the first, but it's the turnaround from the FUNHAVERS.
And I think Oceans is happy to die for that. The setup that they get, the opening that they have for that. What a beautiful ult from Tuba to open those kills into availability.
Here?
But Dardez is getting aggressive.
He is. Won't get the root onto Magic Feet, who goes in and out of the wall. And goodbye, says Magic Feet.
I just think that's so funny. Kalina just, I gotta get out, just runs into the wall.
Into the wall. And out he goes. And that's something I think to look at, Gore, is the rotation potential of this of Dardez here throughout this game. But let's look back at this moment right here.
Look at that. That's just unfortunate. Yeah. They just turned.
Sorry, I was just pausing for effect, and it is gorgeous. And that think of a Merlin. That's what you want. You want that if you're a Merlin. 3 guys stunned on your full void ability rotation. Perfect moment.
That's just a dream,
isn't it? In the way that it translates for the FUNHAVERS. Good news is, if you're the Oni Homies, you're ahead in gold by like 200. That moment didn't break the bank just yet as far as gold goes. Looks like Experience feeling just fine across the board as well. 1 level lead in the jungle, 1 level lead in the solo lane. Really on a knife's edge here, Gord. It appears that just kind of as the waves are going, that's who's in the lead at the moment. So that is even as we started this game.
Ooh.
And the individual plays are really going to start to matter. And that was really, I think, the first time in that last little fight, despite dying, where Neilma now in 2 games on this Fenrir was able to effectively get in, grab a target, and bring it back to his team.
Yeah, and ultimately, it's good for him to be able to showcase that. But you can see, like, already a level deficit compared to where Oceans is. The 2 assists really helping that out. Oceans was behind earlier, so they're farming really well for FUNHAVERS to be able to catch up. He started this entire game in the mid camp on the right-hand side of the map and then did some back games. Like, he showed up to lane at level 1 behind everybody. Having a lead is a huge deal for him, but also the setup he's been going for. I mean, that stun, if it connects, shreds some prots, makes it very easy to eat through that sovereignty and deal with Neil.
Kubo Fred just smacks Joshy, who has to flicker away. It's a warpath from the Kabrakan right now, and FUNHAVERS just kind of scattering to the wind as Kubo Fred walks on through. Spear of Desolation. First item from Kubo. And Nika's going to go full damage again on this Bastet solo. We'll reiterate, if you're just now tuning in, we've already made this point in game 1, but in talking to Nika, he's mentioned to us that full damage Bastet is like the only way to build that god. I think almost verbatim what he told us, which has meant that Kubo Fred is left to building a little bit more tanky so far in this set and in the games that we've seen Bastet solo. So you're almost building as a jungler if you're the solo laner, and then you're building as a solo laner if you're the jungler. Except this time Kubo Fred gets some damage early in the build. Nika taking a lot of damage because the tankiness isn't quite online. And I wonder if that's going to put Kubo Fred in a weird spot here in this build, Gores Kabrakan, where you get Deso online. You wonder if that's enough damage. You just go full tank after that.
At least early on, it should be fine. I mean, we just saw what he was able to do to Joshy, and theoretically, you've got a much stronger mid. Last time around, it was a lot of setup for nothing coming from your mid laner, so it was almost all on Kubo. Oceans is going to look for a little bit more. They're going for Nika.
Nika is squishy. Nika dodges back. Magic Feet's going to get pulled back beneath the tier 1 tower, but Nika is taken down. Dardez rotates through to the right side of the map, but it is way too late. You might be able to do some damage to Uzi. A couple crits find their way into the back of the Odin, but this is a 3 versus 4, and that's how it'll remain. Ragnarok out from Neilma, but you are fighting an odd-numbered fight. Kubo Fred gets melted through by Joshy. The FUNHAVERS bait in the Oni Homies and immediately turn it around.
I'm more than happy for that fight to come their way and turn it that exact dime. I mean, a great pickup from Uzi to be able to get that jump, a huge amount of burst damage. Magic Feet is just doing a lot, and of course Joshy's rotations have been on point. That is what we're seeing out of this Horus. I mean, I'm having flashbacks. You have to think of the Leviathans last year. There was very, very limited Horus games, but of course the way Rongyu likes to play it. But realistically, I'm flashing back to, what was it, beginning of Season 7? Horus was like a huge deal for a lot of teams, and playing with that ult, utilizing that ult in a comfortable way was something that not a lot of people were capable of doing in a way that really flourished throughout all of it. Or if we saw it, and mainly because the charge time at that point was different, it was used for like a couple of base races, right?
Yeah.
That really made a difference. Not a ton like this, like what we're seeing, where Oceans is really helping traverse the map with his team. And honestly, it's been this weekend that we've rarely gotten to see him, or this week so far, where it's been a lot more interesting and a lot of fun to watch. And Oceans has just been putting on a show for me in terms of what this Horus is capable of. And it's paying in dividends. I mean, 2-0-1 for the mid laner, 1-0-3 for Magic Feet. Yeah, he's helping his team out in all the right ways.
And Gore, I think to recontextualize this game in regard to where we were at this point in game number 1, it was almost this exact gold lead. You know, 2000 or so early on, where, remember, the FUNHAVERS pulled the Gold Fury and there was no response from the Oni Homies. And then there was an immediate rotation to the Pyromancer, which has already been taken down. But it was at this point in game 1 where the neutral objectives just kept getting taken. And the Oni Homies had no pushback on any of the Furies, any of the Pyros, on the Fire Giant. And they just ended up falling too far behind. So I think we're going to see a very pivotal moment in this must-win game 2 for the Oni Homies when that Gold Fury ends up getting pulled by the FUNHAVERS, if the Oni Homies know about it, of course. Nika is going to brawl out with Uzi. Both ultimates exchanged here, but Uzi far and away winning this damage battle. Aegis has to be used, and Nika is just not able to brawl here with his Odin.
And that's an important detail to be able to have, is the fact that it's beads Aegis for Nika versus having, you know, the teleport online, having a lot more, I think, utility from Uzi.
Uzi can vibe.
Where he's going to be able to join in. Yeah, he's going to be more than happy. And if they get a pick here, this could lead into a Gold Fury. Okay, Neil's going to be fine, but I mean, you had mentioned it. Realistically, this 13 to 15, 13 to 16 minute mark is really going to be a huge deal, because that opens up this conversation for the Gold Fury.
Yep.
If you don't get the Gold Fury by the end of that, that's when the Pyromancer respawns, so it's still relatively important overall, because there's another objective that could come into availability. And it's all about whether or not you can find that pick. One big opener for FUNHAVERS means a free Gold Fury.
Yep.
I don't know if it means the same thing for the Oni Homies here.
Yeah, I'm not sure with the way that the gold gap is, because it's kind of quietly grown. Was 2,000 up to 2.5K. It's just sort of this passive build-up that keeps going in the FUNHAVERS direction. You can tell Neoma hovering a little something extra on the left side of the map right now. The only ward coverage on the Fury Pit and around the Fury Pit is for the FUNHAVERS. So Neoma's position absolutely known. And that's scary when there's a Horus on the other side. If you are spotted out alone on any side of the jungle, you're at risk of being jumped on by To the Skies. Ward does go down on the Fury for the Oni Homies, so it won't be completely snuck away unless it ends up getting cleared. You're looking for another surprise play, though. Maybe just farming up a couple of these Harpies here. And you can tell it feels just kind of awkward right now, maybe for both junglers, but I think Kubo Fred, especially, he's 2 levels down on this Kabrakan, Spear of Deso, and a Breastplate of Valor. Kind of watching the icon rotate around it. I think Kubo Fred having a hard time, Gore, in determining if there's anywhere he can put pressure on the map.
And we saw good damage jumps from him earlier on, but that was into Joshi, and Joshi has not been caught out very easily since then. And this has been something, we talked about it a lot over the last couple of years, but Kubo, and whether or not he's a huge impact player for the Oni Homies, dictates a lot of where their success is. And unfortunately right now, I mean, 1-2-0, he hasn't had a whole lot to do. And it's a little worrisome to see if he can continue, or at least try to find some sort of impact on here. I still have a lot of high hopes for Kabrakan. Good walls late game can change a team fight. So it's no means out of it for him yet. He's on par in terms of level, and he's still got decent damage despite the fact that he only has 1 damage item online right now. I'm expecting a lot, but I am raising the bar for him because I think it needs to step up from here on out. Especially since they're already kind of falling behind in terms of gold. You need that extra push from somewhere else.
Right. Yeah, Gore, it's moments like just a second ago where the FUNHAVERS are kind of grouped up, all as 4, around the Fury Pit. We've already kind of briefly mentioned it, but it's a moment like that where Nika's still over on right, and I'm just waiting for the hat to drop and somebody from the FUNHAVERS to walk in, and we realize that
Is it right now?
Uzi can teleport in, and Nika's just stuck on the right side of the map in a 4v5 fight.
Look at their positioning.
Right. A moment like this, where one engage, and Nika's on the far right-hand side of the map, and Uzi has teleported to the left side of the map. And so the Gold Fury is going to get pulled. Nika will be here, but the Gold Fury might have gone down by the time that Nika makes his way in. Frenzy used. Oni Homies, they steal it away. It's massive. They needed something in this game to get their feet back underneath them. And now the disengage is in from the FUNHAVERS. 3 are out. Thanks to the Horus ultimate. Dardez alone, though. He's in between 4 members of the FUNHAVERS. He goes into the wall. That'll buy him some safety just for a moment. Kubo Fred left alone as well. Massive wall from him. But he is locked into place. Stuns on the back end as Neoma is re-engaged. Uzi jumps back in, grabs a kill on a Kubo Fred. The health bars are low, and Dardez is able to capitalize.
Uzi just has to stay alive here. That's a devastating blow for him after the Gold Fury with Tuba going down. This is great for the Homies.
It's massive for the Oni Homies. They get the Fury steal. They get 4 magic feet around the backside of the wall, and Dardez
he's not getting out of there.
Attacks. Aegis on the other end had to be used, and it's all but a deicide. And the Oni Homies come up huge.
I mean, it hits all the checklists. Do you get the Gold Fury? Yeah. Do you get the kills after the fact? Yes. Do you have free reign of the map for another 30 seconds before the FUNHAVERS can really do anything? Absolutely. This should be not just this tier 1, but maybe stripping away some camps in the jungle. It is going to be a little dangerous. The health bars are kind of low right now, specifically looking at Dardez. But that's going to be a massive necessary swing for them. And a lot of huge plays coming out of it. I think that you get to see something we didn't get in game 1, and that is Dardez has an impact. Whether it's being a lightning rod and having a lot of people focus on him for a little bit, or the damage that he was able to do, his ult being helpful. It didn't matter that Nika wasn't part of that fight. They got in there, Stellar Burst does its job, and Vote is able to secure themselves the Fury. That's just FUNHAVERS doing a 50-50, and unfortunately losing it pretty hard.
Yeah, and the fun, and it was that moment where I thought the FUNHAVERS would be able to open up that door. It took a wide rotation from Nika to towards the end of the fight to get in there. Kubo Fred stayed alive for a little while. Void Stone completed as well, so some damage, some tankiness from that item. Saw Kubo Fred and the rest of the boys talking after that fight, saying, this is what we can do. Let's make no mistake. Good ultimate from Kubo Fred. Uzi locked in place. Shielding is out, but the up down enough. Oni Homies get the pyro and a pick onto Uzi. They've wrangled back control.
Yeah, this is something that was feeling a little devastating. Look at that gold swing. I mean, just that mountain that the Oni Homies have been able to amass in retaliation. That Gold Fury is only one of those spikes, and Pyromancer is only the most recent one. The rest of those are good kills, good tower play, and good retaliation. This is a team that if they get a lead, they know what to do with it. And that's why it's been so impressive for FUNHAVERS to have the play they did. And in Game 1, there was a lot of macro play that paid off. Here, unfortunately, it just falls flat.
But the FUNHAVERS have now found an opening. Neoma is locked in place. Ragnarok back. Who is really in danger? It's Oceans. And a bit of an overextension from the FUNHAVERS support means another kill goes over to the Oni Homies. Fire Giant still standing, but the eyes are on the tier 2 tower. Joshy's going to rotate over from mid. And eyes need to be on this Merlin Gore as this game goes on. Power Spike starting to roll through for him. You've got the Spear of the Magus there. Divine Ruin. Charon's Coin could be important in this fight.
That burn is important when it comes to objectives if he was able to help with it. This is all vote. And admittedly, you have to give a little bit of pressure there to Dardez. I guess just too low, not feeling confident in their capabilities. I like falling back, especially depending on the golden hand. Specifically for Dardez, he's almost at that Wind Demon, and yeah, he needs a little bit more before he can fall back and get that. But you can see like the shell getting upgraded, a lot of really good pickups here, or sorry, getting picked up there. Spectral armor, a lot of good items getting online for the Oni Homies that are just going to enable these fights even more so. I mean, that suddenly nullifies a little bit of damage from Tuba. And we were talking about Neil struggling last time because he had, what, Thebes into a breastplate or something like that. He's got a lot more protection this time to stay alive in these fights. And he actually gets to dive in, and that is that turnaround we just saw into Uzi.
I mean, he's still behind Neil is, still just hit level 12. Don't love the idea of being, you know, if I'm Neil and I'm jumping into a bunch of level 18s, level 17 is a level 12. But I would argue that's we were level 12 at the end of the game. In game number 1, so we're at least much more relevant. We have a couple more items. I think you're spot on there, Gore. Neil in a better position. You know, we talk about, you know, mid laners, Zeus, for example, Poseidon. You just want to dump your damage, and if you die, fine. Neil, of course, wants to stay alive as long as he can, but really just needs to be able to get off the Ragnarok, find a pick early for his team, get some lockdown. And in game 1, was unable to even do that. So Neo in a much better spot to impact this game for the Oni Homies. FUNHAVERS not out of it yet. They've shown fight in moments like this week for themselves as well. Only find themselves a 2.5k gold down. Magic Feet blinked on by Kubo Fred. Beads used. That'll be out of the wall for the clean. Nika hits it. How did he weave it all the way through? And that'll burn the Aegis off Magic Feet as well. Double kill. My man's a magician, and he does it to Magic Feet.
And now, look, I mean, Dardez, if he can get out of this alive, this is a huge win for the Oni Homies. I love this surge.
Oh, my God. And Nika on a triple. Give it to him. Uzi's going to jump out. And the fourth and fifth kill will escape. Frenzy gets used. And we will walk on over towards the Fire Giant.
Maybe a little early.
A touch early there. I think the numbers advantage enough, though, for the Oni Homies. The effect will be the same. And a big, big play when you need him most. Nika pulls back in Magic Feet, splits the uprights just through the jungle. And that pick turns into more, and that pick turns into an FG. The Oni Homies on the verge of pushing us onto a game 3.
And they just got the tier 2 on right with minion pressure, not having to really commit a lot of time to that and still getting the reset. Primal Fury's up. They've got towers that are going to be easily burned through. I like what Josh is doing here, just trying to create a little bit of space. But you've got to look at this. So first off, getting the beads off of Magic Feet was huge. But it's just
no
right
chance.
in the perfect spot. And if you replay that 8 times out of 10, it's not going to connect. But it doesn't matter. Nika got the one chance he really needed, maybe the 1 and 2 that he really needed. And then it's just the damage numbers that this guy's able to put out on this Bastet. It's not going to be a ton against some of the tanks, but he didn't care about the tanks. He goes through everybody else and makes it look easy. And if that connects on anybody else, I mean, it's back up. That's a huge pull.
Right. Yeah, I'm thinking, like, if Oceans is 1 centimeter to the right, that hits the Horus instead of the Kleena.
And he might die, but it's by no means as big a deal.
Agreed. And it's that split-second decision from the rest of the Oni Homies to dive back in. Gives Nika the triple kill. But how many times, Corf, we heard that story? Like, not that the Oni Homies in entirety have played bad games up to this point, but like Nika himself making a massive play. The rest of the Oni Homies doing much better than they did in game 1, but that's a Nika moment right there. And it's completely completely pulled this game in favor of the Oni Homies. The Primal Fury will go down all on its own. No pushback from the FUNHAVERS. Massive gold lead, 9,000 for the Oni Homies. And they get a bunch of gold off these towers, bunch of gold off the neutral objectives. Looking at maybe one final push opportunity.
I'm gonna kick him for a second though. It's not as big as the gold lead the FUNHAVERS had in game number 1 at this point.
You're
No,
right.
I think it's just because
You're
it's just
right.
the turnaround, right? I mean, you have to imagine that you started this at a 2K deficit, so realistically you had an 11K gold swing that has now been in your favor. It's just that you had to fight from the trenches to get to this point. And realistically, all of the combative nature of what the FUNHAVERS did on the map prior to that last push around the tier 2s kind of gets negated by two pushes. I mean, realistically, you hardly got anything on that tier 1 tower. The camps and experience you tried to strip away were good for you, I think, in the case of Joshi, who was the one who was able to get a lot of that, but not as helpful, I think, in the grand scheme of trying to control this map. You have to look at Phoenix defenses because you're going to have one here in a second for the FUNHAVERS. Joshi does good, nice, big AoEs. Same thing for Uzi. A good cage here could change a lot. But this is not the position I think that Magic Feet is feeling as comfortable in. We haven't gotten to see this Kleina control the game the way that we got to see in game 1. And that's been a huge difference play from the Oni Homies, controlling Magic Feet and just not letting the jungle flourish.
And Gore, I think these are moments where you don't need to do too much if you're the Oni Homies. You got 45 seconds by the end of this sentence left on your Fire Giant buff. Fire Giant will be back up a minute after that. Maybe consider a Phoenix and not try to do too much after the fact. Don't give the FUNHAVERS any opportunity back into this game. That sucks if you're Magic Feet. You have just taken way too much damage from Kubo Fred. The silence doesn't matter. Nika adds another. And now Magic Feet gone for 55 seconds. And now, Gore, the window opens to maybe do a little bit more.
Yeah, you might be able to get 2 Phoenixes in this case because they're going to have to split up.
Ooh.
I mean, Nika takes a little bit of damage, but again, look at where he's able to turn it around on Uzi's low.
Frenzy used. That means the Oni Homies want to storm in the base. Kubo Fred, he's got the first. The Phoenix in the mid lane goes down. Dardez crashes down on the left side of this fight. Nika there just to make sure FUNHAVERS don't get any ideas. The mid lane Phoenix is gone. And Nika's living rent-free in between the Titan and the Phoenix on the left side. Should be another easy bird. As Nika takes a little bit of damage. Joshi late enough in this build to keep things interesting. Dardez on a killing spree though, as Tuba gets pulled back in by Nika. And look at the Oni Homies score there, looking at a now 3-man down situation for the FUNHAVERS. Joshi uses the actives. The walls crash behind him. The Titan will as well. And the Oni Homies send us to game 3.
And that is nothing short of what I would expect from this team. I am surprised how far behind they got in game number 1. But again, draft really did play a lot into that. Draft changes up. And a lot of that focus for me originates with that Chernobog in mid. Having an Aphrodite there, you got some healing, you got a savior, and that's about it. Having the Chernobog there, you've got a global ultimate, you've got good damage, and you've got someone who was present in all those fights. But even then, Dardez wasn't the standout player, right? Nika gets a lot of huge plays, a lot of big ults that open up the opportunity and create that conversation around what this Bastet can bring. You get Neil Ma, who's actually able to exist in the game. He could jump in and not just die, and that was a huge deal. And that Kabrakan, slow to start, decent damage early on, not really anything to write home about. Eventually, something just clicks there for Kubo Fred, and all of a sudden he's impacting these games, he's setting up kills, he's getting stuns, and he's really providing a lot. And those walls, they made a difference by the end of the game.
And I think Nika now needs to be worried about a level 1 gank. We started on the left. Oceans was considering the mid lane.
Yeah, it's going to be Nika
We're going to head on over to the solo lane now if we're the FUNHAVERS trying to make something happen at level 1. Oni Homies, nearly caught him the Oni Warriors. They're trying to get back to being the Oni Warriors. They'll get one step closer with a game 3 win coming up next.
Fire in me, got no regrets. Can't fall. overdose. You're the antidote. Losing sleep, I am in too deep. No matter where I hide, you got me sleep deprived. Blow my mind with a warning. You dug in deep within me. I feel obsessed. I can't help myself falling into the widest ocean again, again. Can't forget. You got me wrapped around it. You feel me, your body wrapped around me. Good mistakes. Oh, you got me looped upon it. You and me got me losing sleep. I am in too deep, like an overdose. You're the antidote. Losing sleep, I am in too deep. No matter where I hide, you got me sleep deprived. Can't forget. You got me wrapped around it. You feel me, your body wrapped around me. Good mistakes. You got me looked upon it. You and me got me losing sleep. I am in too deep, like an overdose. You're the antidote. Losing sleep. I am in too deep. No matter where I hide, you got me sleep deprived. I don't wanna be alone. Spend too much time by myself. So many things that I still don't know. It's time for me to move on. I want you right here, but you're all across the globe. Never call me back, even though you're on your phone. Wishful thinking gets the best of me. Hoping that it's still you and me. Yeah, I thought we'd always shine. Just some time off, we'd be fine. Guess that I was wrong this time. When I think about it now, I know that I don't. I do not wanna give you more of my life. I do not wanna give you more of my life. You're just gonna waste it now. Not sure if I'll make it out. I do not wanna give you more of my life. I'm all in with my mind. Will you ever call me back? How am I supposed to go if we never said goodbye? Reading through our convo, trying to find where it went wrong. Baby, I'll be fine if you text me one last time. Wishful thinking gets the worst of me. Hoping that it's still you and me. Yeah, I thought we'd always shine. Just some time off, we'd be fine.
Turn to normalcy here for the Oni Homies, finally able to get themselves a win here in this set. But they still got one more to go. FUNHAVERS, they put up a strong fight here in game number 2, but it just wasn't enough. And I think a lot of it, Mifflin, kind of comes down to that very early game. We were talking about how Horus Medusa is such a strong kill lane, and they didn't put Horus and Medusa in the lane until a couple minutes into it.
No, yeah, I just feel like you missed out on a large opportunity there. I think they also got a little bit outdrafted, the FUNHAVERS, that is. We saw Magic Feet go back to his signature, the Kleena. What is Kleena doing to Cabrakan? Like, what are your options? You going to scream at him? He stuns you. Are you going to try and walk through a wall? You can't walk through his walls. It just felt like every single time Magic Feet tried to get involved, this Cabrakan was like, say psych.
Yeah, just not a whole lot to be had there. Magic Feet couldn't get anything going this time around. Early on, the damage was definitely there for the side of FUNHAVERS, but once the kind of tankier items started coming online, specifically the Cabrakan, and then even Neil Ma over there was able to get some stuff going. But Nika finally kind of getting himself out of these lanes and getting involved in these fights. We got to see a little bit more of what we expect out of a full Bastet, or a full damage Bastet, and kind of more what we can expect out of Nika here. I mean, these constant flanks within the jungle, picking up a couple of kills of his own, and then that 1-6 snipe, probably one of the nastiest Bastet snipes. We get to see it right here one more time. Being able to hit this target in the middle of 3 of them, just crazy.
Yeah, is it that he's nuts or that Ocean's kind of like let it happen? No, it's because Nika's nuts. And you're right to say that it looks a lot better, the Bastet Soul, that is, because of those rotations. In game 1, it really was just Uzi's here, Nika isn't, and that was kind of the story of the game. This time around, both showed up, but the Oni Homies had an advantage, and Nika was able to leverage all that damage in his build to really start to separate these team fights. And it's something I talked about during game 1. Nika is the core of damage for his team with this style build, with this style of composition. So he has to be there. If there is a fight happening and Nika isn't there when he's playing a full damage Bastet solo, you're essentially just playing without 60% of your team's damage. You really need him.
I mean, when the last time that we saw him bring it out before this set went through, and we asked him, you know, you're going this full damage Bastet, but then we looked across the board, and it was because his jungle and his support were the ones building the more full tanky style. So he did get to play more like a traditional assassin-style, jungle-style pick here from that solo lane. Game number 1, he never really left that solo, so we didn't get to see that jungle aspect and what makes that Bastet so strong. Coming in this game, top of the damage charts for his team, top of the GPM. I mean, that is... we were talking about impressive when we see like anything kind of coming up close to 600, and then we saw like a 630 at one point. We're like, dang, that's good. 678 GPM out of Nika this game. That is wild.
Yeah, must be nice to just have more money than everybody else, right? Like, God, I wish. Yeah, Nika does a great job. He holds his own in lane, immediately rotates out, makes plays through the middle of the map, facilitates these objectives, and that's what you expect when we see the Bastet out of Soul. That's what I expected when we saw it get locked in for the second time in a row. And I think now the FUNHAVERS probably have to put some respect on this pick. Maybe a ban, maybe they try and take it away for themselves.
And do you think maybe here, Mifflin, that the FUNHAVERS kind of sway something else towards the jungle? I mean, the Cabrakan gets locked in first, and then it's the Kleena picked up immediately afterwards. So if we do see this Cabrakan not get banned, and the Oni Homies maybe pick this one up a little bit early for themselves, do we think that Magic Feet might need to switch from going on to this Kleena towards something else in the jungle?
Hey, maybe he could take the Bastet for himself. That's acting as a ban. I'm sure that he's very capable of playing that pick as well. It's something that we've seen see a lot of success from other junglers. Scream comes to mind as a very successful Bastet jungle. I'm expecting some adaptations here. Game 3 situation, you really want to stay on this side of the bracket. You've got a good deal of data now on both of these teams. It's time to see some changes.
Well, it is going to be picks and bans for game number 3, and change number 1 that's going to happen will be in that very first ban. FUNHAVERS with the first pick this time around. They will take Cabrakan off the board. Oni Homies, they're not going to change up their strat too much. It'll still stick to that Ardio, making sure to keep that one out of Uzi's hands entirely. And then the Circuit and Zeus, very similar across the board. All they've really slotted in is this Cabrakan as far as the FUNHAVERS ban is concerned.
I think that goes a long way, right? If Magic Feet wants to go back towards that Kleena, this is one way to make sure that he isn't getting just stopped at every single turn. That Cabrakan really was making it hard for that god to operate. So if he wants to go back to Kleena, that's something he can look towards. I don't think we're going to see it in the first pick position. Now the Oni Homies probably have to think about, all right, well, Cabrakan was our answer. What do we do now? Are we going to allow him to go back towards that Kleena? Are we going to have to ban it out? Instead, it's going to be the Amaterasu. Maybe the FUNHAVERS prioritize something for mid here. We've been seeing a lot of bans there.
We'll see where the first pick goes out. Kleena as a first pick, probably not the option the FUNHAVERS want to go for. Oni Homies haven't really shown any interest in picking up that god themselves. So where will the FUNHAVERS kind of start things out, and then immediately after, what will the Oni Homies' response be? An interesting thing to note here about Magic Feet, though, is all of the wins that he's found this weekend with his team have been on this Kleena. So that's where the success of this team has been. We'll see if that holds true here in game number 3. But it is a Fenrir as the first god locked in, taking that one away from Neil Ma.
Yeah, I think that's pretty massive, legitimately. Neil Ma has been seeing a lot of success on this pick. It really does fit the style of FUNHAVERS as well. It's kind of the storyline I've been pushing is FUNHAVERS are that early game aggression. They want to get involved. They want to get active. They want to start making things happen very early on. And the Oni Homies have that more kind of slow, methodical, let's play the macro. Yeah, I mean, they can dive us. We're going to go for the back camps. We're going to control the mid camp style of play. I think that Fenrir is something that generates enough threat for the Oni Homies that the FUNHAVERS can't just kind of walk all over the map, and then taking it away for themselves have now given them a very aggressive lane, as well as some flex potential if they so choose.
We're talking about a strong lane, or as far as somebody who can hold pressure in a lane. It is Izanami in the duo lane for the Oni Homies. We've seen kind of the transformation it had for Mineral in our previous set, where he was just getting bullied and bullied and bullied games 1 and 2 on a low pressure hunter. Gets that Izanami one time, and all of a sudden he goes from being the one 4 levels down to being the one 4 levels up. We'll see if that pans the same way here for Vote on the side of the Oni Homies. And pair that over with the Gilgamesh, who's still one of those popular jungle picks and can, well, basically do no wrong on a comp.
No, except for when it goes into Soul Lane. Don't want to see that. Do not want to see Gilgamesh in the Soul Lane. Jungle, yeah, that's fine. And I think that is likely where the Oni Homies are going to take it. If it were the FUNHAVERS, it'd be worth noting that we've seen Gilgamesh in support a couple of times. So certainly flex potential generally, but when we're talking about the Oni Homies specifically, it is very much slated for that jungle. I think it's going to be a lot of early game pressure from Kubo until he decides to round that 3rd, 4th item slot to become that facilitator tank. I'm talking about Witchblades, the Shoguns, Kusaris, things like that.
Interesting.
Yeah. Cthulhu this early in your draft is going to allow the Oni Homies to kind of draft around it pretty well. Generally, when we see Cthulhu, it's a counter pick selection to deal with some of these space control styles of God, like Hun bots, go for Cthulhu. I mean, if Fear No Evil doesn't work, there's a Sanctified Field, go for the Cthulhu. It won't work.
Like
now, I think that he's really going to struggle in this lane up against this full damage Bastet.
Yeah, once again, Bastet locked in and most likely slated towards Nika in the solo lane one more time. Persephone picked up by the FUNHAVERS, another mage who has been having mixed success, but a lot, or more so, mixed kind of emotions on whether you pick or ban this guy. We've been seeing a lot of bans and a few more picks out here. Now as we go into the second wave of bans, some hunters are probably the top priority, maybe even some of the jungle on the side that the Oni Homies can ban out, and they'll start out by taking away Daji, which would actually be kind of a sick pickup against 2 of the 3 gods here on the Oni Homies. Izanami, Gilgamesh both don't have that CC immunity to get away from Palau.
Yeah, good ban immediately. But again, very curious to see the Oni Homies not betting out the Kleena. If they're going to go towards these jungle bans, maybe they're trying to kind of pigeonhole Magic Feet, say, hey, I mean, you play it a lot. We'd love to play against it here. But I'm not certain that the Oni Homies have got a draft already that deals with Kleena incredibly well. Maybe they're just kind of hedging their bets or baiting him into this pick so they can go towards another counter selection. But no respect for Magic Feet's Kleena just yet.
Or maybe Magic Feet already has his pick in that Fenrir. It could be a potential, maybe baiting all of us here. But we have been seeing a lot more success out of the Fenrir as far as the support role is concerned. So that, it seems to be where most people would kind of place their bets on this god going. With an Agni ban, no surprise, he's one of the top mages out right now. Thoth would probably be the next response ban, I would imagine. And Hou-Yi seems to be kind of this go-to hunter that everybody seems to be kind of pushing themselves back to once again. He's been having more success this week than he has in times past. But man, what a popular god right now.
Yeah, and I think Hou-Yi is a good ban because for my money, he's got a pretty decent matchup in a Bastet. She leaps in, you can apply the stun immediately, throw the stuns behind her if she leaps back, or if she sticks around, you can use it for self-peel as well. It's really good for separating some of these team fights. You've already got pretty decent, if not some of the best space control, thanks to Descent into Madness as well as the Grasp of Death. So Hou-Yi's ultimate would synergize very, very well, specifically with that Persephone ultimate, just kind of locking them down. A smart ban from the Oni Homies. But I gotta think that Magic Feet's just gonna go back towards the Kleena. Maybe we see the FUNHAVERS kind of wait it out a little bit on this pick.
They definitely will wait up for now. Oni Homies, though, going back to a strat that they kind of pulled out during the placement round, which was going for this Fafnir style of composition. You get one, maybe two hunters thrown out there, or even just a couple of auto attackers. This time, the Izanami Gilgamesh. Popped them up with the Coerce, the new Frenzy that's out right now. Couple that with what Fafnir's able to do in that Draconic stance. I mean, that's a lot of objective burn. But instead of the Kleena, we're now looking at a Susano Hover as well as a Cernunnos, a god who is basically unplayed throughout the majority of Season 8 and has seen a few games so far this weekend. No, we're going to get baited. It's not going to be Susano, so it will be Kleena. So that does throw Fenrir over to the support role. But talk a little bit more on the Cernunnos, because he has seen some popularity, and he has seen some success this week in 3 games played, and all 3 of them won.
Large, circular, AoE, CC ultimate with decent setup. Persephone's Grasp of Death going to be able to synergize with that very well. The recent buff to Bramble Blast now applying a cripple going to be very nice. You've got decent sustain as well in lanes. So you can start looking towards early objectives, have your Cernunnos kind of tank up the gold for you while Kleena applies the majority of DPS there. But this is an interesting draft from the FUNHAVERS. I think this is the first time where I'd say the FUNHAVERS really, really want to get involved early. Like this Fenrir, I want to see him rotate out of the dual lane, try and put some pressure into mid. The Morgan is a generally unsafe pick that isn't able to fight very well throughout the early portions of this game. So if the FUNHAVERS can just get involved in that mid 3v3, start controlling maybe some red buffs, maybe some mid camps, start pulling away in the macro game, that could be one way in. Whereas the Oni Homies, with this style of draft, it's waited out. Like, get to the late game, all of a sudden your Morgan's got one-shot potential against a couple of largely immobile picks on the side of the FUNHAVERS. Persephone, Kleena, even Cern don't really have the greatest answers to that Dark Omen, as well as the stun from Morgan. And then you've got Fafnir, as you already talked about, having all those stims for his team with a double auto-attack composition already between Gilgamesh and Izanami. If the Oni Homies are able to make it to the late game, I'm talking like 20, 25 minutes from a relatively even state, I'm not sure how good the FUNHAVERS fight into that is going to be.
And the Morgan specifically kind of here as a 10th pick. It's a god that for a long time, people were just banning the Morgan. She's just good no matter what you draft, you ban it away. Then we started kind of seeing teams shy away from Morgan. She came back with the kind of Cthulhu meta, being able to get 2 of those, 2 Nikes, whatever it may be. So here, and as a 10th pick, Morgan, Mifflin, how do you kind of feel about this god specifically kind of rounding out the draft that the Oni Homies have going here?
Well, I mean, you've got good transformation targets, right? So the Morgan can feel good about turning into a Cthulhu at any point. You could even turn into the Kleena. Gilgamesh is going to be a generally pretty strong transformation target. My only issue with the Morgan right now is that she is essentially seeding pressure in the middle of the map. And in Season 9, there is so much neutral farm on the map that you want to control that you can really just fall behind by playing passively, which is something that the Morgan's playstyle really does kind of encourage from whoever's piloting it. So relative strength of Morgan, late game still incredibly strong. Like Season 8 to Season 9, she still is incredibly strong, but her early game has become a lot weaker because you need more from your mid laner.
Now, maybe one of the benefits of this Morgan is now she has 2 pretty strong gods, at least on her team, with the Gilgamesh and the Bastet, where normally you would likely only have one or the other. So maybe a couple good transformation targets here. But it's a big game here between the FUNHAVERS and the Oni Homies. Only one moves on to the semifinal. Who is it going to be?
Oni Homies riding the hot hand now after they take game number 2. But Gordon, has not been a friendly weekend in game 3 for the team that wins game 2. If I'm remembering correctly, every single 3-game set we've had, the team who's won game 1, lost game 2, has ended up winning game number 3. And so history on the side of the FUNHAVERS. But Oni Homies and a couple of players on this roster, the type to upset odds.
Yeah, I guess we'll see where reality falls, right?
Yeah.
If it falls in track, like Stats Me wants to say, well, it works one way, but well, you also have to recognize that there's always going to be outliers and things that change throughout the duration of all of this. What's going to be a big change-up is going to be the fact that Oceans is on the Fenrir this time. Neilma finally on an actual support. And it's the Fafnir that I'm excited to see. And there's, I think, a lot of conversations to have about a lot of the draft that the FUNHAVERS have. Magic Feet happy to go back to the clean, and Joshy played this Persephone really well earlier. Kernanos, gonna say it again, still not a hunter I expected to come into the day thinking or watching. We'll see what this Fenrir can do.
Gore Ocean's only got a start on him so he could fully upgrade his relic, but Tuba has taken so much damage. And that's it. That was the early game plan here from the FUNHAVERS.
Yeah.
Oceans goes into lane with just a Sentinel starter item. Already has used his hog and his 1 pot. And that was the game plan, to aggress at level 1 and see if we can catch the Oni Homies off guard, or at least equal in levels. But now you're going to be jumping in, taking damage if you're a Fenrir, and you're not going to have any pots to take care of that.
Yeah, you are going to feel every ounce of damage that gets thrown your way. And he still has a 70-second cooldown on this round. I mean, for a full upgrade against an Izanami Fafnir, I don't know if the expectation was to get a kill out of this lane or what, but I can't imagine that's what they were thinking about with it, because, I mean, at the end of the day, you've got an auto attacker that's really good, a guy that has a great stun. It feels like it's going to be something that maybe pays dividends in the next few minutes, but definitely not for the initial portion of the game. You can see Ocean's backing now, has some of those pots, should be able to sustain. It has cost them a little bit in terms of experience towards Vote, and you can see it's on the left camp, it's in the Harpies that they're able to scoop up, that it's really going to feel itself. But, again, not the end of the world, I think, for FUNHAVERS here. Just another interesting start. That's 3 for 3 on unique starts that they've given us.
And this now needs to be a storyline, whether it's in the upper bracket or the lower bracket for this FUNHAVERS team, is that at level 1, something is amiss, right? Whether you're just sending your solo laner in what was the Draugr pit, now the Harpy pit, or sending your support to the mid lane, or having Oceans just buy a starter and fully upgrade to Hastened Wings, whatever it might be. Something's amiss if you're playing against the FUNHAVERS at level 1. Let's look at the rest of the draft, though, Gormizer. I want to start right here in the mid lane with Joshi and Dardez. Persephone has been heavily banned out across the board in many of the sets so far this weekend. Morgan has not. But again with the Aphrodite, and we're relying on history here when I say this, Dardez, and the way that he is able to play a pick like a Morgan, immediately gets a big buff. And so I think Joshi, we've seen great things from the Persephone. Gonna have to step up big to match the pressure that Dardez is gonna have this game.
Yeah, I mean, this Morgan, and with all of the good transformations that are available to her throughout this game, it's going to be an absolute nuisance, I think, to say the least. And what we've seen out of the top level, I think every SPL mid laner should have one, right? Dardez falls onto that list. He was in the SPL last year. I think that checks all the boxes. And it is something to be worried about. Plus, you've got the Cthulhu on the other side. I mean, you want teamfight disruption. You get that plus a Fafnir enhancing Kubo and Nika in the middle of an engagement. I mean, teamfights for the Oni Homies are going to look pretty good for a lot of them. It will be a fun... And right now, it's a fun theory craft. I guess we'll see it in actuality. But having haste on anybody where successful attacks, and then you add Magic Feet into the play of it, you add Oceans, add Tuba. It's not just the dual lane. It'll be a lot of interesting play for the FUNHAVERS. Again, whether or not it's worthwhile to do it immediately is yet to be seen.
This is a big opportunity for the Oni Homies here. Oceans disengages Kubo Fred, no good on the drop kick. Ultimate used. Neoma's Relic used, gank used by Kubo Fred. And the FUNHAVERS able to stay alive. But you can see the trickle-down effect of that early pressure that didn't work out from Oceans. Likely to hit level 5 here shortly are both Oceans and Tuba. But there was that small moment at level 5. Oceans jumps in to a level 5 vote to Asdark Portal, and it immediately gets turned around. Oni Homies grab first blood, and it goes over to Neoma.
I will give him credit, though. Oceans did steal the camp. He got the experience overall. I don't know if he got the Lotus, and I don't think it was worth it.
Tuba drops his ultimate. Another drop kick missed, though, by Kubo Fred. Winds of Shamash is down. That drop kick hits. Like you're looking at another kill here. Kubo Fred over on the drop kicks we've seen so far. But if nothing else, we're putting pressure on the left side of the map. So the Oni Homies score won't be sad with the way the early game has started, but maybe realizing some extra opportunities had slipped through their fingers. Kubo Fred starts off his build here. It's a game of chicken. I think we're just waiting for Oceans to come in and assist. I wonder if Neoma is feeling confident enough. Yeah, if you just walk forward, see if you can auto attack or steal away this purple buff, but we'll choose to go no further. And the FUNHAVERS able to drop it. Just some mind games there from Neoma. But Core, it's Berserker Shield early for Kubo Fred here. I imagine we still see full damage from Nika on this Bastet. But it's been in moments like this, especially with like a Gilgamesh out of the jungle, Where I want to keep my eyes on how Kubo Fred starts to feel as this game goes on. If you feel like full damage might have felt better on the Gilg, and really that conversation between having a solo build damage and forcing your jungler to build tank, you know, things like that. I think will be an interesting storyline throughout this game. Kubo Fred has to use the beads. He'll walk away.
Honestly, what I'm looking at right now is for Kubo to essentially negate what was the game one Gilgamesh, right? And so far, I mean, admittedly, he's had a lot of presence on the map. He's had some decent ults. I think we're now 0 for 3 in terms of drop kicks. I saw one that he tried to pick up Joshi with and wasn't quite able to connect. It's the small things that, grand scheme, maybe aren't going to make or break this team, but it's little leads that you're missing out on now. And so I'm just watching over him for the next few minutes to see if it's going to be as worthwhile to focus in on the jungle portion of this. I mean, I said the same thing about the Kraken early on last game was, I don't know, it needs to do a lot. And then he went and did a lot. It's still Kubo Fred. It's still one of the longest tenured junglers, I think, in the league at this point. He's been playing forever, and he has had some wild success in his career. And so it's always going to be fun. But whether or not he can bring that consistency this game is going to be the make or break for them, I think, early on.
Spike for Dardez. Do more out of the mid lane. Rotation potential now there for the Morgan. Blue buff invaded. Kubo Fred hits this drop kick and steals away the blue buff. Cthulhu falling, I won't say behind, but small moments like that can build up as the laning phase goes on. Kubo Fred finds pressure on the right side of the map. Little inkling of the FUNHAVERS. Rotating towards the right. It's mainly Oceans who is left. The left side of the map, that's left Tuba alone. Neoma and Vote send damage. Good ultimate in from Tuba. Dark Portal nearly reads it from Vote. One more auto attack is all Vote needed. And Gore, you know, if this game continues on, I mean, Tuba's being kept behind just by having to leave lane. But if the FUNHAVERS end up getting a lot of power going out of the duo lane, you wonder if the Oni Homies are going to be real sad about, what, 2 or 3 kills now that have kind of gotten away from them with either missed abilities, missed engages, things like that.
Just falling shy of, again, small leads. Like, overall, they don't necessarily mean anything individually, but the fact that it's happened 3 times there, you add in the ones that have happened and missed in mid,
right?
All of a sudden it becomes a lot more like, oh, hey, this, what, 500-ish, 800 gold lead that you have right now could have been dialed up to 1,000 by now. Could have been dialed up potentially to 1,500 if things had continued going their way and had conversations around what mid-camps you're getting in terms of neutral objectives, maybe even starting to look at a Gold Fury in the next 3 or 4 minutes. I mean, really, we're looking at maybe the saving grace for FUNHAVERS that they're only down by 1 kill.
Yep.
That they're in a very easily manageable gold lead. And you look at their team comp, I think of Persephone, I think of what Kurnanos is going to be able to provide, and I think specifically of this Cthulhu as a team fight stage, like, powerhouse, realistically, for all of them. And the damage numbers should be scaling up. So as they start grouping up, especially with Magic Feet and the performance we've seen more consistently on this Kleena, I think it's something that is going to pay off as time goes on. At least keep things interesting for us.
Yeah, Magic Feet, a wonderful game number 1. Kept largely in check in game 2. A player who has seemingly come out of nowhere and has performed admirably. And that's an understatement so far this week. Kleena has been the popular pick. Need to do more on it here in this game. Helps secure the blue buff, but now jumped on by the Oni Homies. Gets into the wall, but Neoma waiting on the other side. There should be a collapse here. Magic Feet stunned down by Neoma. Nika has got the last bit of damage, but it is chaos on the right side of the map as Uzi has ascended into madness, sending damage towards Kubo Fred. The frenzy will wear out. Neoma body blocking as best as he can, and it looks like 1 for 1 is what we've got.
And honestly, I mean, jungle for essentially someone building like jungle, it does go, I think,
we'll call it
par
jungle
par.
for jungle.
Yeah, so keep it even overall. Getting rid of Nika there is a huge deal, especially because he backs and is going to start up this Transcendence next, so another big power spike on the way for him. But I think Magic Feet, especially after last game, it's not necessary for him to be as successful as possible, but definitely not where he wants to be after that fight. Speaking of not where you want to be, just take over
now.
to, it's 2 now for Tuba, but he was down by like 2.5 total levels here.
And I think, you know, that we hadn't seen all of the fruits of the Oni Homies, you know, labor on the left side of the map yet. But now that Vote has started to spool up a little bit, he can exert more pressure over there and force Tuba to stay a little bit further behind. But not the case on the right side of the map. Small objective, but an objective nonetheless. It's not there for the Oni Homies. FUNHAVERS grab the Pyromancer. just remain about 300, 400, 500 gold behind. And so as important, Gore, as those first Gold Furies have been all set long, feels like we're rolling towards that
Sorry,
again.
that's the lesser-known Lou Bega song, is the 300, 400, 500 gold behind, as opposed to Mambo number 5.
Got it.
Yeah. Sorry,
No.
My
Gore,
brain's
Gore, there's someone out there who appreciated that.
The 2 people
you
in
know-
chat that love that joke are eating it up,
You know where
baby.
that person is at Katsucon?
Yeah,
She's
no,
gone.
I'm going to go ahead. I'll be completely open and honest. I don't think anyone hates my jokes more than Katie does. She does not have any
Maybe
time
this is
for
a
me.
bad look on me, but who's it? Lou, is it B
Lou
or V?
Bega?
Bega?
Or is it Vega?
Oh
my God.
I'm telling you that didn't clarify it for me at all, because I don't know who sings Mambo,
The Mambo number 5 guy.
guy.
Honestly, that's more clarifying than his actual name for most people.
What
You're
instrument
right.
is that at the beginning of that song? You know what I'm talking about?
There's a lot of trumpet in that song, but
Hey,
there's a
double
lot of
stun.
horns.
We're going to get bailed out of this
Horns.
conversation by a double stun from
Yeah,
Oceans.
it's Vega.
B?
Yeah.
All right, noted. Oceans. Luckily, that would have been a real bad look for us if a team fight just starts brawling around the Gold Fury. But and you know what? This intensity starts to build up, because again, this is not a knockout match. But you wanna maintain.
Well, Vonnie has said the loser of this match does go up against their
get knocked
team.
out against them.
And so this is kind of
Right.
an elimination match.
Right, if you think of it that way. But Vonnie has lied in tweets all week long.
Oh, man.
And he's been-
man.
He has been picking characters that he's not been tweeting about, so I don't trust anything the guy says on Twitter at all anymore. But you know, the intensity of losing this and going home is not there, because it's an upper bracket match. But you want to retain that elimination match buff as long as you possibly can.
Yes.
The longer you can stay in the upper bracket, the pressure might feel a little bit less. I mean, you're just making life easier on yourself, on your mental, and that's why in a moment like this, where by this point we've had 6 or 8 kills for both of these teams in both of the previous 2 games. Like, the FUNHAVERS, I think, are saying, all right, look, we're only 500 or so gold behind. Let's not rock the boat, right? Let's not do something that's going to cause us to fall out of contention of this game. And the Oni Homies, Gore, maybe feeling something similar. Vote's got a little bit of a lead here. Let's just let that continue to build up. Maybe we start to feel comfortable then taking a fight around this Fury.
It's that conversation, like you said, grand scheme. For FUNHAVERS here, winning this set is a huge upset for what they are able to accomplish, and really a great position for them, because then you're only 1 set away from being able to get promoted. Whether that would be tomorrow or Sunday is, remaining to be seen for them. But for the Oni Homies, winning the set is expected of you. It's something that really isn't like you said, it's not shaking the boat at all, whether it's in game or for the bracket. If they are in the lower bracket, that changes a lot of the conversation for those teams down there. And it makes it a much more difficult promise for some of those guys to make it anywhere near as far as they would like to. And so a lot of pressure that rides on this one. And this is typical Game 3 pace, right? I mean, we're used to seeing this where you honestly have to slam on the brakes a little bit and reconsider each engagement. Get your picks where you can, but don't overcommit for them. Things like this is where things can be a little shaky, right? Can you get in, get the purple buff? The answer for the Oni Homies is yes, but if you overextend there, and a fight goes wrong, all of a sudden the FUNHAVERS get a Gold Fury for free. The same thing, if the FUNHAVERS try to defend, all of a sudden they lose this Gold Fury and they fall much further behind.
Tuba has avoided death numerous times. Uses the beads, ult dodged out. I think FUNHAVERS sad with the outcome, happy to keep Tuba alive. Oni Homies probably just fine in burning not only the ultimate, but one of the defensive relics. And here's the first Gold Fury of the game. The Oni Homies have stolen 1. That was in game number 2. Can the FUNHAVERS do the same here? Jumps exchanged, frenzies used, and we are fighting around the Fury Pit. It's a double Cthulhu now as Dardez has transformed. Where's the other one, though? Rotating in the backside of this fight. Dardez has been left alone, and the FUNHAVERS dealing all the damage they need to, but it looks like Dardez will be just fine. Can Oceans capitalize on the kill? Not just yet. Magic Feet is able to, though. It's a 1-for-1 trade, but the ADC has died on the left. The mid laner also swept aside by Nika, and the Oni Homies have found a big fight, looking for a triple as the Bastet, and Nika might just get it. Back-to-back triple kills for the solo laner.
And now they're continuing the chase. That's a good drop kick, a stun onto Uzi.
Is Nika gonna add another? He is in range. Quadra kill for Nika. Give it to him. All 5. Set him up. Knock him down. Nika, the man mountain out of the solo lane. Come on.
That's nuts. He did it. One. Hey, we got a competitive Penta this year, faster than anything we got to see last year. And Nika does it on Bastet. 6-1-0 now. That's a free Gold Fury. Easy for him. And that fight did not look like it was going to go well for the Oni Homies starting out. I mean, Dardez gets relatively low early on. They're struggling for peel. There's a really deep dive from FUNHAVERS. And the problem is that dive gets a little too deep in the jungle. All of a sudden, the damage is easily applicable from Nika. He's able to find it wherever he wants and not to stress too hard about overextending. And by the time they're rolling forward, he's got a double kill. The 2 carries are already dead. The damage return was so minimal from FUNHAVERS at that point because Oni Homies picked up the most important kills immediately on. I mean, just look at it. I mean, where he's able to find these kills, immediately onto Tuba being first, it's his ult. That's a great pickup for them. And then Joshi is an easy scoop up second. Separated from the team, and there's no chance of them ever being safe.
Active in-game right now is Nika grabbing a kill over onto Oceans, Dardez onto Joshi as well. So things, while the Penta actually rolls, getting worse for the FUNHAVERS in real time here.
And it's Nika still.
And it's still Nika
as it turns
who's doing
out.
all the work. Could be another multi-kill for Nika. And
Can he time it right? Can he get 2 kills
two
against 2
kills on the
Cthulhus
Cthulhu?
at once?
Yeah, Nika in real time gets a double. Triple maybe around the corner, but no, you're going to get the shutdown as Magic Feet grabs it. And so Nika at 8-2. We get to watch his Penta. We get to watch Nika add 2 more kills in the bottom right of your screen. You know what? All right, so this is overly harsh, and I want to get ahead of this by saying that. But I think that a meme where like Nika's Thanos and it says like you couldn't deal with your own failure and where did that bring you back to me, and then like the next frame is all of the other Oni Homies, like, and I say that's harsh because they're not failing by any means.
But it is also like a little truth. There's a little bit of truth in there, Dave.
Like a crumb, right? That's what makes it funny. It's like failure's the wrong word,
Yeah.
but you have to directly quote it. It does feel like, whether you're talking about SPL last year or qualifiers right now, Nika's the guy we're going back to if we're the Oni Homies to step up.
Put Nika on anyone. Well, okay, hold on. Remove Nika from the equation. I think any other solo laner here, maybe not any other solo laner. We have a lot of solo lane talent.
We're going down a
You know what?
slope.
The whole point I was trying to make was it'd be very difficult for anyone else in this position to be 8-2-0
Yes.
with the team. But I think that would have just transitioned to kills elsewhere. I think he's getting a lot of these kills, and like his KDA looks good. But there's been a lot of setup. Dardez as the Cthulhu right before the Penta starts is a big deal for separating that team fight and baiting people in. And there's a lot of conversation to be had around it. But I do think that Nika has been just a pinnacle of excellence. I mean, when you look at it, and I mentioned this only because the solo lane in the SPL is stacked. You've got FineOK, Haddix had a nuts year. You have to talk about Solar Troll. Scary D coming back this year is a really, really big talking point. But Nika has been one of the like prime examples of solo laners, of course, of streamers, things like that, for Smite and for the SPL. And being able to see him consistently do this every single time, whether it's against top SPL teams or it's in the play-in bracket, like it's just something that it's hard to imagine a world where they get knocked down here and potentially knocked out and don't even make it into the SPL because of the echelon of play this team can provide.
Yeah, look, it's the consistency is what's like almost humorous about it.
Yeah.
Like, you know,
it's too wildly funny.
like over the course of a weekend, there's at least one game where it's literally Nika against the world. You know what I mean? And you want to have a guy like that on your team. That's why I don't. While Ama is in meta, I don't think Nika gets that pick once. While Amaterasu is a meta pick, I don't think Nika gets it a single time.
No.
I think,
rightfully so.
I think somehow that's scarier. How about this call from the FUNHAVERS? To get back into a game like this, you need to make calls like this. Frenzy used, Neilma close in range. The rest of the Oni Homies are going to be slow. Half HP on the Fire Giant. It is low, and it is stolen away! Nothing going right for the FUNHAVERS. Dardez snags a kill. Kubo Fred gets another. It's desperation mode, and the desperation is unfounded. Oni Homies, they steal the Fire Giant. They get 3 kills, and we are starting to snowball. Snowball's already an understatement. We are there.
Look, this game has everything. It's got Lou Bega references. It's got pentakills. It's got objective steals, dude. It's got everything that the Oni Homies want to move forward. Now they've got a massive gold lead, a full team with Fire Giant, and they've got 30 seconds left before 2 members come back. 10 more seconds for Oceans. This is a free Phoenix at the minimum.
At the minimum, Numa, if you have the transformation and the frenzy, you're maybe looking at a game ender. Oni Homies want to make no mistakes about this. Or, that was a horrible way. Want to make no mistakes about this. Don't want to make a mistake about anything going on here. You're maybe a bit shaken after the way game 1 went. You regroup. You're realizing that the FUNHAVERS are a very capable team of making plays. Let's rewind, though, to the mentality, though, after I believe this Oni Fury will go down. It will. Is that the right call in your mind for the FUNHAVERS? That's a desperation play. You're so far behind. If you steal that, it delays the game, or if you take that, rather, at least delays the game. Is this the right moment to go for that play?
I think it's a good call up until the moment Neil walks in. Yeah. I think, and actually, I want to say the worst call about this entire fight, outside of the coin flip, is that Sentry Ward was sitting there.
Yeah.
And I saw Neil walk in not placing that. It was already there. So that means they went in and tried to do it and didn't de-ward. I mean, that is maybe the most questionable part about it. I think it was very revealing for the FUNHAVERS.
Yeah, the Sentry Ward was very revealing.
Yeah, but I do really like the call, the idea behind it. You're, like you said, very far behind. We watched your team get pentakilled. We watched while we were rewatching the pentakill, your team get slaughtered again on the left or right-hand side of the map. You didn't really have a lot of ways into this that felt like it was going to be equal footing. Start a Fire Giant when you know the Oni Homies aren't there and try to coin flip your way into it. Unfortunately, your coin flip was up against Neil and Vote, and that's just not going to be a very successful coin flip for you. It felt a little rigged on that side just because of the ults that they had available to them and the way they jumped into it. Oof. And now you're in a worse spot because of it, but I don't think the call itself was bad.
A bit of a slow back from the FUNHAVERS, and so the left side Phoenix goes down uncontested. Oni Fire Minions are in the mid lane. You're gonna have Fire Minions pouring down left at some point here as well. No tier 2 tower on right. Minion wave on right, very, very far away. I think the Oni Homies may be okay to just tank that one up. We'll see what the call is here. It's to jump on Magic Feet. Oh my God. He is gone. So is Oceans. There might not be a Phoenix defense because the Oni Homies, they smell blood in the water. A penta kill from Nika has brought us here, and the Oni Homies, they'll make no mistake in game 2. They make no mistake in game number 3, and they will move on in the upper bracket.
That one was the reminder. Game 1 was a slip-up.
Yep.
Maybe an experiment, if you want to call it that, just because Aphrodite was present in the game. Game 2 was a bounce back, but again, maybe a little closer than they would have liked in a lot of moments. Well, Game 3 was the, hey, we are getting our spot back. Yeah, that was a declarative statement. There's an exclamation point at the end of it.
And who made that statement?
Yeah, it was all Nika. Well, it was mostly Nika. Like 80% Nika, 20% the rest of the team lifting Nika up on their shoulders to make him look really good.
Yeah. We said not.
Maybe I mean that the other way around. 80% of them lifting him up, and that way it's split evenly across 4 people.
Right. The math works out better in that case. Although you could divide 20% by 5% for everyone else. Right. There's ways to make that work. To be clear, we're giving Nika all his due praise, but the Oni Homies did all step up.
He's gonna get the praise.
Right. He did all the Oni Homies stepped up in games 2, game 3 to provide an environment where Nika is able to make a play like that happen. It only seems like a matter of time before Nika gets something going in these games. Oni Homies makes things interesting in game 1, but makes no mistakes in game 2 or game 3. This one has come to a close, and so will we. Go to a break. Desk will break it down after that.
Nada más que solo palabras, y si no las cumples se van a desvanecer. Algún día volverás tú al lado mío y yo de testigo. Vamos 1, 2, 3 sin estrés. Muéstrame sus pasos, te cuento hasta 10 y ven. Yo sé que tú quieres moverlo sin pena, ven. Sin estrés, muéstrame
pasos, te cuento hasta 10 y ven. Yo sé que tú quieres. Sé que tú quieres conmigo, amor, todos esos placeres que brinda la vida y que nos hace tan feliz. Sé que tú quieres conmigo, amor, todos esos placeres, como acariciarte y conocerte de raíz. Recuperé la fe cuando yo a ti te vi, mami. Bailabas como un ángel, me acuerdo de ese party. No lo hacías despacito, no eras como Daddy, eras como Bad Bunny, tu flow bastante cari, alright. Hermoso y con timidez me gusta, y con esa sencillez que asusta. Sabes bien cómo es que es combi completa de cabeza a los pies. Sin effects, mami, yo te entono, te subo el pitch y te derrito el cono. En mis historias siempre te menciono, pa' esa reina necesito un trono. Sin effects, mami, yo te entono, con esos besos, chica, me emocionó. Con tu cuerpo y tu nivel, quieres otra vez. Sé que tú quieres conmigo, amor, todos esos placeres que brinda la vida y que nos hace tan feliz. Sé que tú quieres conmigo, amor, todos esos placeres, como acariciarte y conocerte de raíz. Vamos 1, 2, 3, sin estrés. Muéstrame sus pasos, te cuento hasta 10 y ven. Yo sé que tú quieres moverlo sin pena, ven, sin estrés. Muéstrame sus pasos, te cuento hasta 10 y ven. Yo sé que tú quieres. Sé que tú quieres conmigo, amor, todos esos placeres que brinda la vida y que nos hace tan feliz. Sé que tú quieres conmigo, amor, todos esos placeres, como acariciarte y conocerte de raíz. Inicio, el futuro, bebé, ya tú sabes.
You said I was a piece of art. You decided to paint my heart, but you colored it gray, then you put it in a frame, hung it beside other house gray as mine. Oh, I should've known, should've let you go. Oh, I should've known, should've let you go. Oh, I should've known, should've let you go. But I wanted to fall in love so bad, like in the movies or the trees. You like in the movies or the trees. You wanted to tear down my walls. You did that by sweet talking. You got inside my mind. Now I'm wide awake at night. Put me aside. I wasn't worth your time. Oh, I should've known. Should've let you go. Oh, I should've known. Should've let you go. Oh, I should've known. Should've let you go. But I wanted to fall in love so bad, like in the movies.
Yeah, so Mifflin, kind of like we were talking about on the desk before, full damage Bastet, pretty good in solo lane, to say the very least.
Yeah.
Nika, putting on a show out here for the Oni Homies. A nice little set. I was hoping maybe you were going to roll a little bit with me there, but no. That would be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he got like 5 kills at the same time.
Well, they were a little spread out from the same time. It was a small gap between those there.
Oh,
But
you're going
no.
to back me up, man. What's going on here?
I am backing you up. They were kind of close, not all at the same time. But regardless, the Oni Homies with a very dominant performance here in game number 3. They take the set over the FUNHAVERS, and they move on towards the semifinals, where they'll meet the winner of the next set that will be coming up. But before we even talk about the whole next set and everything like that, I'm going to try and talk about this game a little bit. I mean, we talked about how in game 1, Nika wasn't really making the rotations out of the lane. Game 2, able to do so. And then here in game 3, fight around the Gold Fury, and then a full team wipe.
Yeah, Nika really stinked it up in game 1, and then in games 2, he was like, all right, maybe I rotate out. Sorry, I stinked it up, guys. And then in game 3, he's like, maybe I didn't fully pay back all that stink. And he kind of like just does it to everybody, like all 5 of them at the same time. No, completely realistically, this is the first game this set I would argue that the FUNHAVERS were out farming the Oni Homies, but it didn't quite matter because there was an added emphasis from the Oni Homies about actually team fighting. They were actually rotating and trying to make sure that they were finding kills around the Gold Fury, phenomenally kind of playing around some of these massive CCs like Uzi's ultimate. It felt like they were always disengaging properly or creating space so that this Cthulhu Descent into Madness wasn't really able to separate the team fight. And then from there, I mean, the Oni Homies, once established the lead, kind of just like never stopped. It was kind of gross. Legitimately, that was one of the fastest Oni games I think we've ever seen. It's something I brought up at the top of the set. Generally, this team has been one that has struggled to push their leads, like turn 2,000 into 5,000 into wild objective plays. If this is how they're going to continue to play, I'd say they've completely rectified that issue.
Yeah, I think that's one of the problems that we even talk about a lot of, kind of the lower league teams is they do have the problem pushing those leads and really holding on to them here. But this is a perfect display of what you do when you finally do manage to get that lead. And we got a couple of tweets out here. One from Tuba that said, told Nika a few nights ago that if we play each other, there's a timeline where I pentakill him. See y'all for set 3. I can only imagine what the response is from Nika now that Nika has pentakilled them. Ratio.
Do we have confirmation? Did that ratio?
Ratio.
Oh, it ratioed.
Okay.
It ratioed.
So it ratios.
Man, that's gross.
What a way to try and make a call out here and then have it turned on you
That's
instantly.
so much protein. Oh, my God.
25 grams
It's like
of
a
protein.
small cup, man. Why does he need all that?
That is not a small amount of protein to have in that one singular yogurt cup. I can't think of
It probably tasted bad, if I'm being honest.
I wouldn't know. I've never had that brand of yogurt before.
I've never had that much protein.
I guess that's fair there. Let's take a look at the in-game stats here. 9, 3, and 4 for Nika, adding the pentakill in there. The first competitive pentakill of Season 9. Not in Season 9. Ever this year in a competitive game towards the SPL. It's really going like this already, Mivel. We still got a whole nother set to go through. But we got to get through this one first. Again, top in the GPM charts must be nice to actually not top in the GPM. Vote steals that one away from him by a mere 6 GPM.
God, he just keeps stinking it up.
He gets a pentakill and he can't even hold top GPM.
It's actually kind of embarrassing. Now that I think about it. Yeah.
Absolutely embarrassing. Cannot believe it. All jokes aside, dominant performance out of Oni Homies. They will move on up towards the semifinals. And we've got the Penta King himself here to talk to. But it's not just him. We've also got Dardez standing by for an interview because we couldn't get one. We had to get both of them here. Congratulations on your win today, guys. Talk to me a little about the kind of the momentum and mindset shift from game number 1 after you guys kind of got blasted.
Yeah, I don't know what happened game 1. It wasn't me. I didn't stink it up like you said, Mifflin, honestly. Okay, no, everyone was part of it. We were just like super sleepy, I feel like, and just making like, we planned out what we want to do in that game and did nothing towards that. So it was just like really bad by all of us, and like just had to clean it up game 2 and 3. Simple.
Yeah. You guys do clean up in games 2 and 3. Dardez, I kind of want to come to you here. We're talking a lot about the mid lane mages being this real big new meta shift out here. You come back and you bring Aphrodite of all things for game number 1. That one doesn't go too well. And you go with another hunter in game number 2. What's up with this, man? Mages are crazy and you're playing hunters again.
Look, I mean, I still think hunters are like good. I mean, Afro, look, my team forgot how to play with Afro, so I mean, we literally, like, that was awful. And I don't know, I mean, mages are OP. I like playing mages, but I mean, hunters have been working in streams. And I mean, I've played more, I guess. It's a mage, kinda.
Kinda.
Yeah, I mean, you're a mage for like half the game, and you're somebody else
Yeah.
for the other half of the game. But
I played Agni as well. Yeah.
okay, okay. You know what? Fair. You did play Agni yesterday. You did get at least one other mage game out there. But you guys get a nice little win today. You're sitting there coasting, ready to get for the semifinals. Is there any expectations of our next set? Maybe any favorites that you guys want to see kind of play for that first SPL slot?
Well, I think both teams could take it on the day, but I'd give like a slight edge to Winter Dogs. I think they're just like a more complete team like in this moment. For us, I think it just comes down to if we play clean on the day, it doesn't even matter who we play. But that's on us. We troll a lot, as you can see. Like I think all of us like disappointed. Like even though we're winning, like we should be doing way better, and we just have to work on ourselves mainly, I'd say.
Yeah, we'll see how it pans out. Congrats on your win today, guys. Let's you guys get back so that way you can celebrate and get ready for your set tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thank you.
There's nothing but fun to be had with the guys out here. Nika saying that it's not his fault in game number one. He's not the one who stunk it up here in
Yeah,
Mifflin.
of course not. You know, let's talk about your interview etiquette, J-Mag. You said we got Penta King God Nika
Well, you got the Penta.
and also Dardez.
Well, we got Dardez. Okay, you know what? Fair. I didn't hype up Dardez enough there, but when you come off of a pentakill like that, it's kind of hard to hype other things up here. I mean, man, kind of just popped off there with Nika out here. Let's take a look at the schedule, though. We do still have one more set to go. It's Duck Club and Winter Dogs. And I know I say this every time we get to another set that's so closely matched and so exciting out here. But this, again, might want to be one of my favorite sets to watch. Duck Club and Winter Dogs, potentially such a very even match, a new team of talent, of at least new teammates in talent in Duck Club, and then a team that's stuck together and has had much success in the SCC, and the Winter Dogs will be facing off. The winner of that plays up against the Oni Homies. The loser will have to face off against the neighborhood down in the losers bracket. FUNHAVERS, after their loss, they'll play against Just F6, who have been having a very dominant performance ever since they've kind of unfortunately found themselves on that lower side of the bracket.
Yeah, have not lost since that initial loss. I think I've got to echo the thoughts of Nika here in this Duck Club versus Winter Dog matchup. The Winter Dogs have legitimately just been doing it longer, right? They've been a squad for a lot longer. So that completion, I think, how he said they're a more complete team, very good way to word it. The communication's there, the stratagem is there as well, but that's not to take away from Duck Club's individual talent. I think that this could be pretty close, but slight edge to the Winter Dogs.
Well, we'll have to see what happens in our fourth and final set of today right after this break.